Chapter 1 Prologue. Naruto was exhausted. Having to fight one Uchiha was bad enough. But two, he was currently fighting both Uchiha Sasuke and Uchiha Madara. He could have defeated Sasuke fairly easily, but every time he would be ready to make a decisive blow, Madara would intervene. Not that Madara escaped harm. He had taken a couple of Rasen Shuriken. Madara had been able to avoid most of the attack, but didn't come out unscathed. They had already captured and bound Karabi. Now they were after the last uncontained Bijou, Kyuubi. Naruto had finally had enough, since Sasuke had killed both Sakura and Hinata a little over a month ago, in the hopes of showing him what pain was like. Naruto had done his best not to lose control like he did before when he believed Hinata had died in the fight with pain. The big problem was that Sasuke didn't understand that Naruto actually understood pain much better than he could have ever imagined. Being alone for so long had ingrained several things into his psyche. Few would befriend him, and even fewer would ever love him. Sasuke was at least loved in his early life. Naruto felt so betrayed by Sasuke. He had everything that Naruto had wanted. And even worse, Naruto had learned only a few short months ago in that fateful attack on Konoha by pain that his father was none other than Namikaze Minato, the fourth Hokage. He knew that Sasuke was being used by Madara to get revenge on Konoha for some slight that had happened many years ago. He also knew about the Jubi and would not give his life so that Madara could rule the world. So Dobe, will you come along quietly, or do we have to eliminate you and wait for Kyuubi to reform? Sasuke asked as he panted hard. The boy is not worth the time. Let us just kill him and wait for our revenge on those who wronged us? Madara exclaimed. Naruto shook his head. What about those who you've wronged? He asked, as he turned to Sasuke and asked, You know, Sakura really did love you and you killed her in cold blood? Sasuke turned his head in disgust and said, She was a worthless girl not worthy of becoming a kunoichi, and she couldn't even figure out that I wasn't interested in her. Still, she was in love with you and you killed her. All we wanted to do was bring you back to Konoha and try to get the team back together, Naruto explained. Sasuke laughed. You're even more naive than I thought. Konoha killed my family, held me back, and it turned my brother against his own family, Sasuke explained. So you would have the Uchiha destroy the village and turn everyone that opposed them into slaves? Naruto asked. Sasuke shrugged and said, Why not? We are after all Uchiha and we are the best of the best, the elite. Naruto smirked as his breathing steadied and said, The best at stealing others' hard work. Your Sharingan does not allow you do anything other than steal. No, it is so much more than that. I can read others' movements and predict what they will do, cast strong genjutsu on opponents with them, and with the Manjikyu Sharingan I can even cause a fire that lasts for 7 days and nights, that can't be extinguished, Sasuke explained with exuberance. So you get off on the suffering of others? Naruto asked. No one will miss you if you're gone, Sasuke blandly replied. After all these years of being thought of as the Kyuubi, the village finally accepts me for me, Naruto explained sadly. You are the Kyuubi? Nothing else can explain your rise to power other than you're a demon, Sasuke responded with a smirk. Naruto balled his fists in an attempt to lower his anger. You once said I was your best friend, and because of that I have one question. Why have you turned so evil? He asked, as a single tear ran down his face. Sasuke began to laugh deeply and was joined by Madara. You think I'm evil? Just because I want to pull that demon from you? Or is it because I've tried to kill you on a few occasions? He asked jovially. Since your brother killed your family, what happiness have you had? Naruto asked. Sasuke contemplated the question, and then answered, I guess the early times with our team were happy, but that doesn't matter now. You said that you wanted to kill that man, and then revive your clan. You killed Itachi, but now you're going after Konoha. Why? Naruto asked. They turned my brother against his own family and had him kill them, Sasuke angrily responded. Naruto then pointed at Madara and said, He forced my father to seal the Kyuubi inside of me, along with the death of many, and you side with him? I used to respect you, Sasuke. But now, like I care about your family, they were worthless before the Uchiha, Sasuke arrogantly explained. Worthless? My father, Namikaze Minato, The fourth Hokage, he wasn't worthless, Naruto replied. You and Namikaze, not a chance, Sasuke rebutted. As usual, you're blinded by your own arrogance and self-loathing, Sasuke. It's all about you, always about you. Did you know at the fight in the Valley of the End, it was me that spared you? Naruto exclaimed. Yeah, right, like you could ever beat me, demon. I had you the whole time and it was I who spared you, Sasuke replied. You used several lethal blows while I didn't. It is easier to kill rather than capture, Sasuke. Pull a punch here or slice less deeply there. I thought of you like a brother, and you repaid me by trying to kill me. So, let's end this. Either the Uchiha will destroy the world, or I'll save it from your evil tyranny, Naruto explained, as he returned to sage mode. This ends our battles once and for all. Naruto created 2 clones and sent one at Madara, and the other at Sasuke. Sasuke dodged the clone only to send an Amaterasu attack at the original Naruto. He was engulfed in black flames and began to scream. Sasuke failed to notice a hand hit him from behind, as he watched in horror, as the Naruto he had hit with attack disappeared in a puff of smoke. Sasuke flew towards Madara and was caught just after he had dispatched with the clone that was attacking him. We can wait a few years for the Kyuubi to reform. Let's just kill him and be done with the last of the Namikaze, Madara exclaimed. Sasuke and Madara both glared at Naruto, as a black orb appeared in front of him. Naruto jumped back in an attempt to avoid the black hole. It suddenly engulfed Naruto and he felt nothing at all. The Kyuubi is a beast of legends. It is said that it was so powerful that it could occasionally see into the future. It would take this information and use it to its advantage. There are some limitations to this ability. 1. If Kami decides that the Kyuubi will not see something, then it won't. 2nd, even seeing the future does not mean you can avoid it, as you can't always see how something that appears bad could actually have been a good thing. Some things are just preordained, others are not. The Kyuubi being used by Uchiha Madara was preordained, as it would be controlled by both Madara and by Senju Hashirama, as they both had the ability to manipulate the spirits, also known as demons or Bijou. If the Kyuubi had known that Uchiha Madara was going to use it to attack Konoha, and then for it to be sealed with the child of the 4th Hokage, it more than likely would have just avoided Madara. Why get sealed and live in the tortured soul of Naruto? While there is no evidence of physical abuse other than what Sakura and other females, and the occasional store clerk, have done to Naruto, he did suffer from one of the worst forms of abuse that a child could face, neglect. Yes, while the 3rd Hokage did visit him, he was not truly a good role model. Naruto showed brilliance in several ways that seemed to be overlooked by others. He painted the Hokage monument, wasn't caught doing it, not until afterwards. The boy had the mind of a shinobi, sneak in, get the job done and get away. He did eventually get caught physically by Irika, but he was playing for attention. The boy had spoiled milk and only liked ramen. Ramen is high in salt and not very nutritious, even with added ingredients. Let us ponder for a moment and ask, what if Naruto received these abilities? If just once? What would happen? Would he or could he change what he saw? If Naruto of the manga became as powerful, as he appears in such a short time, then how do we explain his sage mode? Chapter 2. Was it a dream? You'll catch cold if you sleep here, a feminine voice said to him, as he felt himself being shaken. Wake up. What's going on? I thought I was dead, Naruto thought. He opened his eyes and saw something he thought he would never see again. He dropped the kunai in his hands and looked at the person before him. Who are you? And what are you doing out in the woods? He asked in a worried tone. I'm gathering herbs, the effeminate person answered. Herbs? He asked as he thought, either I'm dead or I'm back in the forest with Haku. The person smiled at Naruto. Yes, I'm collecting herbs. They're for treating illness and wounds, she answered. My name's Naruto, and would you like some help gathering the herbs? He asked kindly and smiled warmly. You do start early, don't you, Anizan? That beats it, it has to be Haku, he thought to himself, as he noticed a blush from Haku. I like it early. It's calm and I didn't expect to find someone out here in the woods, Haku replied, as he chuckled at her response. He did so for 2 reasons. 1, he was embarrassed to be back here, and 2nd, he might be able to save one of his first true friends. As you can tell, I'm a shinobi, from Konohagakure, and was training last night. I'm sorry if I scared you, he said, as he blushed and rubbed the back of his head. So does that mean you're doing something dangerous? Haku asked. Naruto smiled and waved his hand in front of him. No, I'm just training to sharpen my skills and get stronger, he explained. You already seem strong to me, Haku said. Thanks for the vote of confidence, but I'm still fairly weak. Especially if I want to become the leader of my village, the Hokage, he explained. Why would you want to do that? Haku asked. Originally I thought if I became the best and the strongest I would get the recognition I felt I deserved, he admitted. I also have something to prove to a certain person. Are you doing all this training for that certain person, or are you doing all for yourself? Haku asked. Naruto chuckled at the question. Again, at first it was to prove to a certain person that I am strong, but looking back, I'm doing it more to protect those that I feel deserve it, he admitted. So there is someone who is precious to you, and that is why you're doing this, Haku said with a giggle and started to wear a faraway look in her eyes. Naruto gave a sniff just as he lifted his hand to his nose to rub it. He smelled the forest, but also he smelled a light perfume. You're thinking about him, aren't you? He asked, as Haku quickly broke out of her spell, and a look of near fear came across Haku's face. You're a precious person, right, Onizen? He noticed Haku visibly relax, and smelled the perfume again along with another smell he had smelled before around Sakura or other females. That strikes it, Haku's a girl, he thought. She smiled, nodded and replied, Yes, that right, Naruto. I was thinking of my precious person. And when you are protecting your precious person, you will become truly strong, he said almost automatically. Haku nodded as she got up to leave. Naruto grabbed her hand and moved next to her ear. I know about Zabuza and will see you on the bridge in a day or so. Please make sure he is all right, and by the way, I know 2 things that will surprise you. 1, you are a girl, and secondly, Gato is going to betray you on the bridge. I will see you tomorrow at the bridge, and to prove it, I'll not be there at first, but my teammate will be there. He will be trembling with excitement and take out Zabuza's water clones. I wouldn't tell Zabuza-san of our meeting, but it should be proof enough for you when I see you tomorrow when you fight Sasuke. See you later, Onizen, he said happily, as he concluded his explanation. Are you going to tell your teammates about this? She asked. Naruto smiled and released her wrist, while saying, Not a chance, Haku-chan. Not a chance. Haku looked surprised as she asked, How do you know all this? I'll explain it all tomorrow, and don't get yourself killed by Kakashi-sensei. Please, he nearly pleaded. She nodded and walked off. Naruto noticed Sasuke approaching and he began to wear the happy idiot mask, as he pushed down the urge to kill him on the spot, for what he was going to do. Sasuke finally reached Naruto and smacked him on the head. Hey, what you do that for? Naruto asked. Idiot, did you forget breakfast? Sasuke asked with a smirk. Naruto snickered, as he rubbed the back of his head, and said, Guess I lost track of time, sorry. He then pulled out a ration bar from his pouch and began to eat. Ru-ro, these things taste awful, he commented, as the first bite was swallowed and his speech returned to normal. Sasuke wore a look of disgust on his face, as he replied, Didn't anyone teach you manners? Naruto finished off the bar and shook his head. Nope, didn't have anyone around to teach me those things, sorry, he replied in a resigned voice. Sasuke smirked and actually chuckled, while he offered him his hand to help him up. That's all right, let's finish this training, he said happily. Naruto took his hand and smiled, as he stood and said, All right. When Sasuke turned, Naruto quickly made several clones and handed them scrolls with pencils and sent them off into the woods. But one ran quickly off on a tangent course to the way Haku had left. Naruto quickly caught up to Sasuke, as they entered a clearing where they had been training before. Naruto quickly made about 20 clones and sent them off, half to train tree climbing elsewhere, a quarter to try to do water walking, and the last quarter to attempt the jutsu he learned in his dream, the Rasengan. He knew that the Rasengan team would soon fail, but he wanted to have them start the work for him, as he knew now that the Shadow Clone Jutsu would help him in his training. Naruto continued to do the tree climbing exercise along with Sasuke, as he would occasionally grab a trail bar. Dang, these taste just like cardboard. And I know what that tastes like, he thought to himself. He suddenly felt a memory come over himself. As a couple of his clones had dissipated, he got their memories. Apparently his clones had been busy and found a way to keep the training going without falling and dispelling themselves. One would walk up the tree and hold position while another two would hold it up if it fell. This caused the clone to be able to attach and hold its place, while not in danger of falling. This gave slower progress but also got the basics learned a little more quickly. A little after noon, Sakura and Kakashi appeared in the clearing. Sakura wore a surprised expression and said, "Wow, you made it up that far." Naruto thought about goofing off, but the memory of possibly falling from this height and being caught by Sasuke was not one he felt he wanted. He simply walked back down the tree and smiled, while he asked, "When's lunch? I'm starving." Naruto ducked a punch from Sakura, as she yelled, "You wouldn't be so hungry if you didn't skip breakfast." She then realized that she had missed Naruto. "Huh? How did I miss him?" she asked quietly. Naruto glared at her and said, "Is that any way for an Emuto to treat her Nizan?" Sakura looked at Naruto in confusion, as he had referred to her as his younger sister, and himself as the older brother. "Naruto, are you sure you haven't been training a bit too hard?" Naruto shook his head, and replied, "Nope, just a little tired and need some food to replenish my chakra and stamina." Naruto suddenly collapsed from exhaustion, as some of his clones that were trying to do the Rasengan dispersed and failed miserably at it, attempting the jutsu, only adding to his fatigue. He did know that he wasn't ready for that jutsu, but wanted to try to work his way up to it and later other variations. "Loser, as usual you push too hard. Let's go get some lunch, then we can return and put that legendary stamina to work again," Sasuke joked. Sakura smiled warmly at the interaction. Naruto wasn't being bossy and he wasn't trying to outdo Sasuke-kun, so she was happy. Kakashi wondered what had gotten into the boy and was wondering why Naruto was pushing so hard. It wasn't like Zabuza was going to be at the bridge tomorrow. "Oh well, I'll let him be a kid for a little while longer," he thought to himself. Naruto and his team ate lunch while his team talked about their progress in this exercise. "Well, I bet we'll get to the top by tonight," he boasted. "It will prove if that dream was about the future or just a dream," he thought to himself. Naruto and Sasuke sat on the highest branches of their respective trees, as they had finally reached the top using chakra to get there. "Hey, let's go back," Sasuke said in both a tired and jovial mood. "All right," Naruto replied happily. The team and Tezuna's family had a quiet dinner and went to sleep. Naruto woke up the next morning and realized his team had left him behind. He created several clones to protect Tsunami and Inari from the samurai thugs sent by Gato. As Naruto neared the bridge, he got a mental image of Inari crying happily, because Naruto's clones had saved him and his mother, and the clone had used the speech he had used in the dream, which by all accounts began to appear to be a foretelling of the future, well, sort of, since some things were changed, but only small things like Sakura being nicer to him since he called her little sister. And his chakra control was much better than it was in the dream at this point, but he had also set about to fix that. Naruto found his team fighting against Zabuza and Haku. Naruto looked sadly at the scene, as he knew that if he didn't interfere, several people would die. He was just not sure how to save Zabuza and Haku along with his team and Tezuna. He decided to use the dream to his advantage, as he created a clone and had it throw a shuriken at Haku, just like it happened in the dream. The clone then dropped a smoke bomb on the edge of the bridge. He wanted to test a theory, if he could influence things for the better or at least the different. He watched, as his clone nearly got killed faking an attempt at using the shadow clone jutsu by Zabuza. Kakashi berated the clone for showing off his jutsu. "Yep, just like the dream," he thought to himself. He also noticed the interaction between Sasuke and the clone and began to snicker at how stupid Sasuke was for yelling at the clone, which had snuck into the ice dome with him. If he had just kept his mouth shut, they could have escaped. The clone eventually got caught by Haku's superior throwing skill and turned into a cloud of smoke, to the surprise of both the people in the ice dome. Naruto had snuck by the dome and stuck an explosive tag on one of the mirrors. He made sure that Haku wasn't there when he blew it up, and thus he shattered the mirror. When the smoke cleared, a clone was standing in the hole. "Hey, how's it going? You wanted a way out, right, Sasuke?" he asked with a silly grin, and then winked at Haku. Sasuke was breathing heavily by this time and ran towards the hole. Haku threw several senbon only to be intercepted by the clone. Sasuke had escaped the dome and collapsed next to a pile of lumber. My vision is clear. I can see nearly everything, Sasuke thought to himself. He felt a pair of hands grab him and pull him behind the pile of lumber and begin to remove the senbon, and then he felt his shirt being removed. Nice job, team. Now let's get you patched up, Naruto said, as he finished with the senbon and began to cover the wounds caused by the senbon. Nothing vital hit, so you should be fine in a day or two. Oh, and congratulations on getting your Sharingan, since you have one Tomo in one eye and two in the other. Sasuke felt the bandages being applied to his skin and then his shirt being put back on, as he began to let his fatigue overtake him and lose consciousness. Naruto walked with hands raised into the dome of mirrors. Hey Haku-chan, and I must say that you did a good job keeping team busy. Now do you believe me that I know what is going on? He asked quietly. Haku walked up right in front of him and asked, You're not afraid that I would kill you, are you? Naruto shook his head. While I believe that you could kill me, it isn't in your nature. Let me be honest with you, Haku. I know that Kakashi will use his Raikiri on Zabuza if we don't stop them, and you would sacrifice yourself to protect him. This in turn would lead to him attacking Gato when he turns on both of you. He will also assault your dead body. Gato, that is, Naruto explained. Haku winced at the explanation, but nodded. You seem to understand me, but why would Zabuza attack Gato for just turning and abusing a useless tool? She asked, turning her face away in shame. Naruto sighed. Look, Haku-chan, Zabuza loves you deep down, but he won't admit it unless he is confronted by the fact that you might be dead. You're more than a tool to him, he cares deeply for you. Why else would he allow you to keep your gentle ways? There are two explanations. First would be that you are a girl, and we all know that a guy can't change what a girl is deep down. Second, he cares for you and doesn't want to lose all of his humanity, since you're his connection to it. Thus he loves you and what you can do for him, he explained. Haku felt tears run down her face and pool at the bottom of her mask. How can this boy know so much about people who he has only just met? She thought to herself. Naruto offered his hand and nodded as Haku took it. The ice mirrors fell down behind them as Naruto released some of Kyuubi's chakra. And this is why we are similar, Haku-chan. You were persecuted for your bloodline, and I'm persecuted because I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, he said in a sad tone. The red chakra was frightening, both evil and menacing. Haku initially wanted to pull away, but fought the feeling, as she felt the chakra flow away from the hand that she held. This boy could have killed me at any time, but he is offering friendship, she thought. Now Haku, I need you to trust me, as I need to shock Zabuza into recognizing his feelings for you. This will hurt, but it won't be fatal. I'm also sorry if I expose any of your feminine parts, but I need this to be convincing, Naruto explained, as he placed a clawed hand on her right chest. Now please lie down and lay perfectly still. I will cover up anything that is exposed. And again I apologize for having to do this to you. Haku removed her mask and smiled warmly at Naruto. It is all right, Naruto-kun, if you can save Zabuza-sama and myself from death on this bridge, then a little exposure is worth the price, she replied, as she then lay down on the bridge and waited for the pain to come. Naruto gave a smile of apology and then placed his hand just above where he believed her nipple would be and tore the fabric from the kimono. His judgment was slightly off, since he noticed she had small breasts for a girl of 15 or so. Not wanting to destroy her breast, he moved up higher and raked the skin deeply enough to cut the skin, but not damage the muscle beneath. Blood began to pool in the area, and Naruto wiped his hand in it and roughed up the skin some more to make the wound look like a fatal wound instead of a minor skin wound. The area of the kimono was covered in blood within moments. Naruto then placed a couple herbs in Haku's mouth, which she quickly ate. She moved her hand to near the area and pushed a senbon in. Naruto noticed Haku visibly relax, as if the pain was gone. She removed the senbon and then she smiled at Naruto before taking a few breaths and then taking on the appearance of being dead. Naruto smiled and caressed her face, while quietly saying, "Sorry for hurting you, Haku-chan, and whatever happens don't move, as I'm going to get Zabuza to help us get rid of Gato." Naruto then screamed and burst his chakra in such a way as to blow the mist away from Kakashi and Zabuza. Naruto remained in his transformed state. "Zabuza, it's all your fault," he yelled. Zabuza and Kakashi looked on in awe, as Naruto stood over the body of Haku with his right hand covered in blood and Haku's chest was also covered in blood. Naruto pointed an accusatory his finger at Zabuza and proclaimed, "Haku didn't have to die. All for what? To be betrayed by a corrupt employer who would just as soon kill you as pay you." Zabuza looked at Haku and his face ran through several emotions, but finally ended up on impassive. "I guess Haku wasn't a good tool after all. You're better," he said with a hint of sorrow in his voice. "He gave his life for you," Naruto said, as he approached the two with his shroud beginning to create ears and a tail. "Gato is going to betray you. I know he will. Do you want his death to be for something? I might even be able to bring him back to you." Zabuza wore a look of surprise. There was clapping from behind them. "So this is the great demon of the mist. Taken down by a child and a bunch of reject. Heck, I wasn't even going to pay you, even if you completed the job," Gato boasted as he kicked Haku's face. "And it's too bad that this one is dead. I was hoping to get some revenge on him for breaking my arm." Naruto threw a kunai and then did several hand seals. "Shadow kunai clone jutsu. Eat this jerk," he exclaimed, as the single kunai turned into hundreds. Gato took several and one to the head, dropping him like a brick. The other kunai hit the first ranks of the thugs that Gato had hired. "Now if any of you want to die too, just stay where you are. If not, run away and never return to wave." About half of the remaining ran for the edge of the bridge while the rest took a firmer grip on their weapons, as they said, "You killed our meal ticket and we're going to take it out on you and then this village." Naruto smirked and then repeated what he had done before, except with 8 shuriken. This attack decimated the ranks, and it didn't hurt that he used slight wind chakra to make the shuriken even more deadly. Kakashi wearily walked up to Naruto and asked, "Are you okay, Naruto? That was really cold, especially for you." Naruto turned and smiled, as he walked towards Haku, and replied, "Yep, I'm fine, Kakashi-sensei. I just don't like people like that." He then released the chakra cloak and did several hand seals he had seen Tsunade and Sakura do. His hands were covered with a fluctuating green chakra. Naruto's face grimaced as he tried to control the healing chakra. He knew he could really do some damage with this jutsu, so all he wanted to do was to stem the blood flow. The blood slowed to trickle, and then he pulled out some plant material that looked like moss and applied it to her chest. He then opened her kimono and sat her up and began to wrap her chest with some gauze he had in his pack. Naruto made sure to keep his body in the way of Kakashi's view of Haku's chest. He didn't want to expose her secret to too many people and also wanted to afford her some modesty. He did notice Haku's blush when he pulled her kimono down past her shoulders. "Again, I apologize for doing this, but I hope Zabuza will appreciate the woman that you are," he explained quietly. He then pulled the kimono back up and resealed her kimono and made sure that she wasn't exposed in the hole he had ripped. "Thank you, Naruto-kun. I will be eternally grateful for what you have done for both of us," she replied. "And thank you for keeping my secret from your team. I would hug you, but it would make Zabuza wonder if we were faking my death. I'll explain it to him later." Zabuza knelt next to Naruto moments later. "You know her secret, don't you?" he asked, as Naruto nodded. "You saved her, didn't you?" Again, Naruto nodded. "Thank you, Gaki. She is more important to me than just a tool. I just have a hard time telling her that." Naruto smiled and replied, "Good, then she will make you a good wife later on. She is strong and loves you dearly. Treat her right and make her happy. That is all I ask. By the way, would you guys like to come to Konoha with us? I might be able to pull some strings and get you guys on the shinobi forces. I'm not sure, as the Mizukage might want my head for the failed coup I did," he explained. Naruto thought for a moment. "If we fake both of your deaths, then you could come and no one would be the wiser," he explained. Zabuza nodded and said, "We will meet you when you leave at the end of the bridge. When you leave, Haku needs some rest." Naruto nodded and created 2 clones. They then changed into Haku and Zabuza that both wore terrible wounds and lay down on the bridge. "Kakashi-sensei, could you power up a Chidori and act like you killed Zabuza?" Kakashi approached and looked down at his student. "What are you up to, Naruto?" Naruto looked on as Zabuza grabbed Haku and jumped off the bridge, and the mist began to clear. "I have a plan, but I need your help." Kakashi shrugged and created a Chidori and acted, as Naruto directed. Sakura and Tazuna believed that Kakashi had killed Zabuza and Naruto had killed Haku. Naruto appeared depressed, so Sakura left him alone to tend to the injured Sasuke. Naruto created some clones and began burial detail. Inari showed up with the villager, as Naruto and his clones began to remove the dead bodies. Naruto was happy that Inari brought together the town to protect the village. During the finishing of the bridge, Naruto would leave clones to help and headed to the hideout that Zabuza and Haku used to check up on how her recovery was going. Naruto finished examining the wound. As she covered her exposed breast, he explained, "You will have a scar, and I'm sorry about that. I'm not a medical ninja and have terrible chakra control. I know how to accelerate the healing, but not how to do the little things like knit a wound back together." Haku hugged Naruto, who flinched at the contact. Haku squeezed even tighter at his tensing. "That is all right, Naruto-kun. Since you've done more for us than we could have ever expected. Your knowledge of herbs is astounding. That moss you used, it is a rare moss that will stop bleeding and will help by leaving a smaller scar than would normally be left from a wound. Zabuza is dyeing his hair, so that we can join you on your trip back. Again, thank you for not exposing my secret, even if you did expose me," she playfully teased, and saw Naruto blush. Haku gasped and asked, "You like seeing my bare chest, don't you?" Naruto chuckled at the question and replied, "You're beautiful, Haku-chan. While I enjoy seeing the naked female form, I can also distinguish between professional and personal quirks. Also, you're a little old for me, as I'm only 12 and hoping I might get a girlfriend when I get home." Haku looked shocked, but then a devious grin crossed her face, and she asked, "What? I'm not good enough for you?" Naruto grinned since he understood that this was a trap. "No, Haku-chan, you are too good for a simpleton like me. Also, if I were to try to date you, I think Zabuza-san would take offense," he said in a joking manner. He then sighed and continued, "So what is your cover for when we meet?" "We are a married couple of wandering shinobi attempting to avoid the bloodline purges in Water Country. We heard of the Uzumaki, and if you can get your name out, we will join you because we knew some Uzumaki." "How does that sound, Gaki?" Zabuza said as he entered the room. "Sounds good, and she should be able to travel when we're ready to leave. I'll see you both later," Naruto said happily. "So you like my Haku-chan's chest, do you?" Zabuza asked quietly, as Naruto passed him. "She is going to make you a wonderful wife, Zabuza-sama. As for liking it, sure, what boy who has hit puberty wouldn't like to see the bare chest of a woman? But she isn't the one I'm interested in, and it might be pleasant to see her chest. It doesn't excite me, sort of like seeing my sexy jutsu in the mirror. She is a close friend and we share some of the same pains. I respect her and love her like an older sister," Naruto explained. "So you don't mind if we have some kids, do you?" Zabuza asked. "If she's ready to take your relationship to that level, then no, since she is in love with you and would do anything for you," Naruto replied. "Sexy jutsu? What the hell is that?" Zabuza asked. Naruto sighed and walked back into the room. "Haku-chan, please don't get offended, but I must show you one of my own personal jutsu, since it is used to fight against perverts," he explained, and Haku nodded. "Sexy jutsu," he exclaimed, as he changed into a girl about 18, blonde hair with ponytails, and well-endowed, as wisps of smoke hit his nipples and crotch area. Haku blushed at this, but regained her composure and replied, "We should go shopping sometime, Naruto-chan. You do make a pretty girl, Naruto-chan." Naruto blushed, but then both turned to see Zabuza twitching on the floor with a nosebleed. "See, I told you it works on perverts," he exclaimed to Haku's giggles. Naruto released the jutsu and waved to Haku and stepped over Zabuza's twitching body. Kakashi stood next to the bridge and waited for his wayward student. He saw Naruto approach and sighed. "Naruto, what is going on with you? I thought to leave you alone for a few days, but I'm worried about you so easily killing Gato and his thugs," he explained. Naruto sat down on a stump and sighed. "You know, sensei, we are shinobi and I did what I had to do to protect Tazuna and the rest of the villagers, along with Haku and Zabuza," he retorted quietly. "That's not what I mean. It's as if you killed before, and I know you haven't. You should be feeling something," Kakashi said with worry in his voice. Naruto looked up at Kakashi and furrowed his brow. "I am, but that is the point. Everyone thinks that I'm an idiot, so I give them exactly what they expect. Tell me how many people could slip around the village and do what I did with my pranking? And yes, I know that Anbu, Jounin, and the Chunin were ordered not to hurt me, he said. And your point being? Kakashi asked. I'm more than people think I am. Who came up with the way to free you from Zabuza's water prison jutsu in our first encounter? Naruto asked. Okay, so then what true skills do you have, Naruto? So I can change our training so that our team balances out, Kakashi replied. Naruto shrugged and said, other than screwed up training from the academy, I can do a high-level transformation, substitution, a half-assed healing jutsu, and the shadow clone jutsu. My taijutsu is lousy, and along with my chakra control being abysmal. Heck, when you have as much chakra as a Kage at my age, what do you expect? I need to do advanced chakra control training to get myself to a presentable level. I figure the Hyuga clan can help me there. Why would the Hyuga help you with chakra control? Kakashi asked. Naruto held up 2 fingers. 2 reasons. First, I can open-close chakra points. I'm sure they would love to study that. Second, I can help their heiress become who she wants to be. I figure that would be worth the training, Naruto replied with a smile. Kakashi shrugged his shoulders and then began to ignore Naruto. Chapter 3 Homecomings. Team 7 arrived at the meeting place that Naruto had told Zabuza about and began to yell, I Uzumaki Naruto, and I'll be the greatest Hokage ever. Naruto smirked as he ducked a punch from Sakura and saw 2 figures leave the woods. Shut up, Naruto, Sakura yelled, as she again tried to punch him to no avail. The man stood before the fighting teens and asked, Did you say Uzumaki? Naruto ducked another punch and replied, Yep, that's me, Uzumaki Naruto, who wants to know? The man had light short brown hair and tired eyes. If you're an Uzumaki, then you might be able to help my wife and I. We're refugees from Mizu no Kuni and the bloodline purges. My wife has a bloodline and I'm a former shinobi with Kiri. Since you seem to be a Konoha shinobi, you might be able to get us some help and a new place to live, Zabuza said with sincerity. My wife Haru and myself would be greatly appreciative. Naruto put both his hands behind his head and winked at Zabuza and Haku. Sure, I guess we can help ya, he said. Kakashi looked at Zabuza with his one eye and asked, And your name would be? Momochi Yukio, brother to the traitor Zabuza. He was right in one way, the Mizukage was wrong about bloodlines, Zabuza said, as he looked down at Haku with a gentle smile. They aren't demons. Both Sakura and Sasuke froze when they heard the name Momochi. Kakashi smiled and said, I'm glad to hear that, but I must confess that I did have to kill your brother, Yukio. He left me little choice. Haku feigned a frown at the news that Zabuza had been killed. I'm sorry to hear that my brother-in-law is dead, but from what Yukio-kun says it may be for the best. We apologize for any troubles he may have caused you, she said sincerely. So you knew some Uzumaki? That's great. Tell me more, Naruto said, as he moved closer to Zabuza and Haku. Sakura and Sasuke seemed to want to keep their distance from the 2 newcomers just in case they might attack. The trip back to Konoha was quiet for the most part, as Naruto, Haku, and Zabuza traded stories. The 6 people entered the village without much fanfare or problems. The Momochi family was allowed in as refugees, and of course Team 7 was allowed without a word. Kakashi and Naruto stuck around with the Hokage to explain why Zabuza and Haku were in his village. Using the war in Mizu no Kuni as an excuse to have a new bloodline family was something the village might need. Zabuza asked to adopt Naruto, since they wanted to repay Naruto for what he had done for them. When asked, Zabuza agreed not to try to become Mizukage and gave up all allegiance to Kirigakure. Haku asked for a marriage ceremony from the Hokage to make the appearance more real. She also offered to become a doctor or nurse at the hospital. The Hokage agreed to this, as long as the Momochi would keep their true identities secret. They readily agreed. As for the adoption of Naruto, they were informed that it couldn't happen. The council had forbidden him from being adopted. While he was Hokage, they were rulers of the civilian affairs. If he wanted to, he could push it through, but would lose a lot of political capital. Naruto didn't worry about it, as he said he would spend some his time off with them and they could train him. Naruto had to admit that training with Zabuza and Haku was very taxing. Both were experienced shinobi and Haku was definitely above Chunin levels. Zabuza had asked if he wanted to learn swordsmanship, but Naruto said he had more important things to learn, like chakra control and affinity. Zabuza was impressed that Naruto took his training seriously. Haku also worked with Naruto to learn what he was missing from his academy training. She was even given a position as a Chunin medical shinobi at the hospital. Team practice was boring, as Naruto kept on having a feeling of déjà vu. His memory of the dream haunted him. He also spent some time trying to get to know Hinata. This at first ran into a large roadblock, Niji. So Naruto figured he would get a way around it and hit the Viper in the head. Naruto sat in Hyuga Hayashi's office. He wore a formal kimono that Haku had helped him buy. He was there to give the head of the Hyuga a proposition that would help them both. 20 minutes just sitting and waiting to be addressed was pushing his limits of both his sanity and his patience, but he knew for him to succeed he would have to do this. At 30 minutes Naruto noticed a smirk cross Hayashi's face and he finally spoke. "So Uzumaki, what do you want with the Hyuga?" he asked, not looking up from his paperwork. Naruto bowed and replied, "Hayashi-dano, I'm here to offer a favor and ask for one at the same time." Hayashi looked up from his paperwork with an arched eyebrow. "What could the pariah of the village offer the Hyuga clan?" he asked. "I can offer to help with the heir, and help make her stronger," Naruto replied, as he smirked internally. "This should get him," he thought to himself. "How do you think you could make Hinata stronger?" Hayashi asked. "I know Hinata is strong. It's just that she has a hard time expressing it. I could help bring out her inner strength," Naruto admitted. "Are you going to take advantage of her feelings towards you?" Hayashi asked, as his gaze turned stern. "I'm well aware of her feelings and do have feelings towards her, but I'm not at a point yet where I could be considered a viable suitor," he replied, but raised his hand and continued. "I understand what I carry and how people perceive me. I'm not the Kyuubi, I'm Naruto, and to protect myself I've also created an image of being an idiot. While I'll admit I'm very ignorant on many things, I do learn fast and can help your eldest daughter to learn how to control her emotions, and after a while, I'm hoping to become acceptable in your eyes, as her father. I would understand if you could never see me as more than the Kyuubi, but would think less of the great Hyuga Hayashi if he couldn't understand the difference between the jailer and the jailed." Hayashi was surprised by this boy. He knew where he stood, but also saw a way of becoming more. Looking at the reasons he gave, he now understood what the boy was up to. While he did admit feelings for his daughter, he didn't assume that it would be enough to enter into the clan. He was offering something he could use, and if Hinata improved, he might have the power of the Kyuubi with his clan. "You have an interesting argument, Naruto-san, but how do I know this isn't a ploy to get you into this clan and with the heir no less?" he asked. Naruto chuckled at the question. "In a way it is to get into your clan, Hayashi-dano. I'm just trying to take the proper route. Knowledge of Hinata's feelings towards me does help me insofar as getting her to allow me to help her. We both know that she has a kind heart, but I'm sure you want the best for both your daughter and for the heir of your clan. I figure that both of our goals are the same, as I want her to be happy, but also safe. She can be safe if she is strong," he admitted. Hayashi looked at the boy before him and wondered where he had hidden all of this talent and knowledge. "Let us say for a minute that I believe you and you're being sincere. What are you looking for out of this little arrangement?" he asked, as few favors didn't come with a price and he had already said he was after a favor of his own. "I'm looking to improve my chakra control and make a dear friend happy. If she eventually becomes something more, then it will make me even happier. If not, then I will be happy for my friend that she is looked upon by her father as a good heir. I will admit my ultimate goal would be to win her hand in marriage, but I would understand if she would be against it, since I would leave the decision up to her," Naruto replied honestly. "I must ask you this then. What about your teammate? From what I hear you're enamored with her. And why now my daughter?" Hayashi inquired. "It was part of an act, since I knew I couldn't even get her attention, and I knew the only relationship I could have with her would be more like a sister, since she is too far gone on my other teammate, Uchiha Sasuke," Naruto admitted, as he noticed the scowl on Hayashi's face at the mention of Sasuke. "You don't approve of my teammate, do you?" Hayashi shook his head. "No, I do not. The death of his clan left a scar on him that isn't easily repaired. I would prefer that my daughter not associate with him, Hayashi admitted. Training with Hinata would not take place around my team, as my sensei doesn't do more than work on our teamwork at the moment. He is also showing signs of preference towards Sasuke. This would be one-on-one training between Hinata and I. We could do it under supervision if you would like. You could even attend if you like to make sure that nothing bad or untoward happens. I know you have no reason to trust me other than my word. I have never promised to have Sakura as my girlfriend, but I've promised to become the Hokage. If I were to achieve this, it would be a boon for the Hyuga to have good relations with the Hokage. I will not ask you for Hinata's hand in marriage until I feel that I have earned your respect and asked her if she would like that. Thus you have a double barrier to anything bad happening. Naruto sighed and then continued. I know that she would agree right now. That is if she didn't pass out first. That is if I had actually asked her. I just want to get to know her first. I'm sure that she will find faults with me. Either she will like them or not. Either way we will learn about each other. I will not try to use your daughter's feelings as a way to garner position in the village. Instead I will use her feelings as a way to help her to grow. And if, like I said, she grows fonder of me, then so be it. I will leave the ultimate decision to the two of you. If either of you oppose it, I will drop any attempts to woo her and remain her friend. You have some merit to your arguments, Naruto-san. But what reassurances do I have that you will not drive my daughter into your arms? Hayashi continued to drive his point. You only have the reassurance that I don't know anything about love or relationships at this point in time. We are also both too young, and as a young woman she could change her mind. I would also like your permission to tell her about my secret. This will help to clarify her feelings towards me, and see if training with her will even work, Naruto admitted. As shinobi, I will also let her know to keep the appearance of her old self to help her be able to take advantage of the belief of her being weak. Hayashi sighed and then asked, You've been thinking on this for a while, haven't you? Naruto nodded to the question. You are a good boy, even if you have caused this village some trouble, Hayashi admitted with a genuine smile. What fun would it be if I didn't create some trouble for people who take life too seriously? Naruto asked with a smirk. You're right, Hayashi replied. He then coughed and continued. Be that as it may, I will allow this probationary training. I know my daughter will need it with the Chunin exams coming up. How many jutsu do you know, and what do you know about the Hyuga style? Naruto cleared his throat and replied, I only know a few jutsu, and can't do jutsu that require a lot of control or small amounts of chakra. I know the substitution, transformation, and shadow clone jutsus. I'm working on a couple others and my elemental affinity of wind. How do you know you're a wind type? Hayashi asked. I'm rather free, like the wind, so I guess that's why I'm a wind user, Naruto answered quickly. You're not telling me everything, are you? Hayashi queried with a raised eyebrow. Nope, and as a good shinobi I can't reveal all my secrets, even to a possible father-in-law or not, Naruto replied with a huge grin and a shrug of his shoulders. Hayashi actually laughed at Naruto. Very well, keep your secrets. Shall I call Hinata in, so that we can discuss this arrangement? Naruto nodded. Hayashi then got up and went to the door and spoke to someone outside. He then closed the door and returned to his seat. I'm impressed with you, Naruto-san. You waited patiently for me to finish my work and didn't fuss. Given what I've heard, I would have expected you to have gone crazy, tried to force your way in here and get me to acknowledge you immediately, but then you waited patiently and then gave very good arguments for your positions, he said in a complimentary fashion. Naruto bowed and replied, Thank you, Hayashi-dano. I hope I can live up to your expectations. A moment later there was a soft knock on the door and the quiet voice of Hinata could be heard from outside. You called for me, father? She said in almost a fearful tone. Naruto gave Hayashi a sidelong glance, but didn't comment. Come in, Hinata, as we have a few things to discuss, Hayashi replied. Hinata saw a familiar head of blonde hair, but without his usual jumpsuit, so it took a few seconds for her to recognize Naruto. Naruto-kun, was all she could stutter out as she entered the room. Naruto turned his head and smiled broadly at Hinata and showed her a cushion to sit on. She nodded, blushed and sat in front of her father. She was nearly ready to faint at being so close to her crush, as she kept on stealing glances at Naruto. Hayashi inwardly smirked. If this works, I will get a stronger daughter and the Hyuga might get control of the Kyuubi and possibly have a Hokage in the family, he thought to himself. Hinata, we are here to discuss you and Naruto-san here, he calmly said, as he pointed with his hand towards Naruto. Naruto-kun and me? Hinata stammered out, as she turned beet red and felt as if she were going to faint. Naruto chuckled at Hinata, but then realized that he needed to fix this as soon as possible. Hinata, look at me, he said in a calm, controlled voice. Hinata turned and looked into his deep blue eyes. I need to know the truth. What are your feelings towards me? Hinata promptly fainted. Naruto looked confused, but moved over to Hinata and rested her head on his lap. I guess that didn't go so well, he admitted, as Hayashi just nodded. Hayashi watched, as Naruto gently brushed her hair away from her face in a fashion of a loving person, whether sibling or lover. Naruto continued to brush her face gently, but then looked up at Hayashi and said, "This might be harder than I thought." Hayashi chuckled quietly at Naruto's predicament. So shall we discuss this matter and hope she overhears it and gets the idea? Naruto shrugged and thought for a minute. Hinata slowly woke, but kept her eyes closed, in an attempt to figure out what was going on. She also felt as if she were on a pillow and was having her hair slowly brushed gently by a hand. Am I dreaming? Did father say that he had a deal for Naruto-kun and me? It would be too much to think that he would acknowledge a relationship between us. Who am I kidding? He hasn't even shown any interest in me yet. He barely knows I even exist. Maybe I should just listen and find out what is going on, as I might have just jumped to conclusions with what father had said. She thought, as Naruto began to speak. I offer training with Hinata for training in chakra control. Along with that, you can study how I can reopen my chakra points. I also want to know if Hinata cares for me, he said. I'm not opposed to either, but you will be watched, and if you step out of line it will end immediately. If you can help her work on her confidence, then it would be greatly appreciated. Naruto-san, Hayashi replied. Hinata is a friend, one who I care deeply for. I have only lately noticed her watching me from afar and wanted to know if she had feelings for me. If she could also teach me about those emotions, I would be forever grateful. As an orphan with no family and shunned by the village, I've had little interaction with people, and thus the reason I know that I'm a little rough, Naruto said in a self-derogatory tone. Family can teach quite a few things, like how to treat those around you or sometime not. I think you have done quite well for a child who has basically raised himself. If Hinata wants to pursue a relationship with you, I'm not opposed. Just yet. She is my daughter and I feel that I should protect her, but also I know that the heart follows its own course. While I'm allowing this, do not test my resolve and take it too far, as there are those within the clan along, and within the village that would see this as you corrupting my daughter, Hayashi replied, as both males noticed Hinata stiffen at the mention of her having a relationship with Naruto. A smile crept on her face as she thought, Father doesn't oppose me seeing Naruto-kun. Naruto smirked and said, Looks like our princess is awake and trying to listen in on a conversation that she should be involved in. Hinata's eyes opened to see Naruto looking down at her and his hand playing with her hair. Is this a dream? Because if it is, I don't want to wake up, Hinata said in a soft whisper. Hayashi and Naruto chuckled at the comment from the quickly blushing girl. No, Hinata-chan, it isn't a dream. There are a few things we need to discuss. First, I must know your feelings for me, Naruto asked in a pleading voice. Hinata swallowed hard and tried to stifle the feeling that she was about to pass out. I really like you, Naruto-kun, she exclaimed quickly. Naruto smiled warmly and said, There is more, isn't there? Hinata nodded to his question and started her explanation. I've been watching you since I first saw you at the academy. I'm sorry for doing that, she said with a blush, as Naruto only smiled and nodded. She then continued. The moment that cemented the fact that I had fallen for you was the second night I saw you at the academy grounds passed out from exhaustion. I only wish I could be that strong. She then turned away, as tears formed in her eyes, nearly ready to spew forth. I'm sorry. Naruto smiled and used his hand to turn her face back to his by her chin. So you think that I'm not fallible? He asked as he chuckled lightly. I'm a failure in a lot of ways, and not deserving of your affection. Hinata immediately sat up and turned to Naruto. She took his hand in hers, not even noticing her father was there anymore. No, Naruto-kun, it is me who isn't deserving of you. I've never told you how I feel, even after I've witnessed how they have treated you, she said in a sorrowful voice. Naruto smiled warmly at the girl. Now I will tell you why they treat me that way, he said as she looked in his eyes with surprise. He then continued, I know you remember your lessons on how the fourth defeated the Kyuubi nearly 13 years ago. Hinata nodded and then said, yes, it was said that he called upon the god of death to kill the Kyuubi at the cost of his own life. Naruto chuckled, but Hinata saw fear in his eyes as he continued. What they taught us was only partially right. The fourth sacrificed his life, but not to kill it, since he couldn't do such a thing to such a powerful beast. Here I should give you a demonstration. He pulled a scroll out of his kimono and drew some seals upon it. He then grabbed a scroll off of Hayashi's desk. He pushed some chakra into the scroll and it disappeared. Hinata looked at him with confusion written all over her face for a few moments until it finally dawned on her what he had done. She gasped and whispered, he sealed it away. She then looked at Naruto and saw him nod, as she then said, it's in you, isn't it? Naruto again nodded, and was suddenly embraced by the shy Hyuga girl, as she began to cry into his chest and babble about how sorry she was for not being there for him earlier. Naruto allowed her to cry for several minutes and then got her attention. Hinata, do you still feel the same for me as you did before? He asked, not certain what to do now. She shook her head. No, Naruto-kun, I admire you even more now, as you've gone through so much and done it quietly, she explained. Naruto chuckled at this. Well, that is the first time I've been accused of being quiet, he said, as Hayashi laughed. His tone changed to a serious one as he continued. As for your admiration growing, I'm touched. I need to know if you care about me more than as a friend. Hinata nodded. Yes, I've had a crush on you for a few years now, and that is the reason I've been following you around secretly. I wanted to get closer to you, and to eventually show you that someone does care for you more than just as a friend, she explained, as she looked down and away, as if in shame. Naruto gently hugged her and said, I'm glad to hear that. For starters, I must tell you that I don't know what love is. I know about sex, but not love. I know now what I felt for Sakura wasn't love, it was more of a wanting to be acknowledged by a girl, and thus the reasons I tried to have her go out with me so many times and failed miserably. Naruto-san has a proposition for you, Hinata. Hayashi began to explain, as Hinata looked at her father. He saw that he had her attention and continued, Naruto-san needs help with chakra control and thought that our clan could offer him help, and in exchange for that help he offered to help you with both your confidence and he was hoping to make you happy. While his approach was unorthodox, I approve of him working with you to see if he could help you. If a relationship forms from this bond, I will not stop it, but you must realize that others will not approve because of what he has told you to be true. He is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and thus he has had a life of suffering. Most of our clan respected the Fourth's wishes to see him as a hero and thus the reason I do oppose this possible union. While I'm opposed to a relationship between the two of you that isn't professional, for now, since I know that it could become more than that as you work together. Now with that out of the way, I want you to know that everything that has been discussed here is either a clan or village secret and should never be revealed to anyone outside the three of us or the Hokage himself. Father, so you're letting me work with Naruto-kun even if I might fall in love with him? Hinata asked with hope shown in her eyes. Hayashi nodded and said, if that is how it is supposed to be, then you may fall in love with him, but I don't want others to know of any new strength that you obtain from this training, if at all possible. He then turned to Naruto and asked, why is it that you don't ask your sensei for more training? Naruto sighed, but answered, Kakashi-sensei. While he is a genius, he's lazy and has his own timetables, but mostly he spends a majority of time working with Uchiha Sasuke. While I'm a troublemaker, he doesn't play well with others most of the time. We mostly work on teamwork and do missions. Our teamwork on the field is great, but when we are not in a life or death struggle, it's usually touch and go. We will either fight amongst ourselves or get along, if just barely. Kakashi wants us to work as a team, not as several individuals with skills. I'll admit that Sasuke is better at both taijutsu and ninjutsu than I am, But Sakura is the one who is the knowledge base for our team. I just spam an area with clones to try to overwhelm the enemies. My stamina helps with this, but I need more control to be able to do jutsu. Because of the seal and Kyuubi, I have nearly as much chakra as a Jounin or possibly the Hokage. With academy-level control, I'm limited to jutsu that take lots of chakra, like Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto had opened his kimono and channeled his chakra to make the seal on his stomach appear. Hinata blushed, but Hayashi visibly scowled. "Naruto-san, you don't look that healthy," Hayashi said in an almost angry tone. "Doesn't help when you're overcharged for food and eat ramen for the most part," Naruto explained. Hayashi raised an eyebrow and asked, "Ramen?" Naruto closed his kimono and shrugged. "It is fairly cheap and it takes care of my energy requirements," he explained. He raised a hand and continued, "I know I'm malnourished and wear clothing that attracts attention, but the clothing has its reasons. If I can hide and get away from shinobi ranking from Chunin to ANBU in my orange jumpsuit, then I know my stealth and evasion skills are actually pretty good." Hayashi and Hinata had to admit he did have a point. Hiding in his jumpsuit was quite an accomplishment. There was a knock on the door. Hayashi looked up and asked, "Yes." "Hayashi-sama, Lord Hokage is here to see you and Naruto-san." A voice from outside replied. "By all means show him in," Hayashi said with a raised eyebrow. He turned to the children and said, "We will not talk about this unless he brings it up. Am I clear?" Naruto and Hinata nodded their understanding of Hayashi's orders. Sarutobi entered and waited until the door closed behind him. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice, Hayashi-san." "Well, hello there, Naruto-kun and Hinata-chan. What are you two up to today?" he asked in a jovial tone. Naruto looked at Hayashi, who nodded and said, "I'm seeking help with my chakra control from the Hyuga, and trading, helping Hinata-chan here with her own training, just like I told you." Sarutobi nodded, as he took a seat on the side of Hayashi's desk. "Will Kakashi and Kurenai approve of this extra training?" Naruto shrugged, but Hinata spoke up at this point. I'm not sure if she will or not, Hokage-sama," she answered, stuttering along. "Kakashi-sensei has only taught us teamwork and tree climbing. With bringing back my new friends from Wave, and the fight we had there, it struck me how we weren't ready for that mission and could have been so much better prepared for it. While Sasuke still needs to learn to work better with his team, but he's getting better, we need to have better abilities, and you have to admit my chakra control really needs help, and the Hyuga can offer that to me," Naruto explained. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow and asked, "Who are you and what did you do with Naruto-kun? He wouldn't have come up with something like this on his own." Naruto chuckled and replied, "Hey old man, I can come up with things on my own without help. I learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu without any help in a couple hours. You know, I forgot to read everything about that jutsu, but I'm figuring it out, like I get the memories of the clones when they dispel." Hinata and Hayashi were shocked by Naruto's statement, that Naruto knew a forbidden jutsu and that it only took a couple hours to learn it. Naruto smiled at their shock and saw Sarutobi wink at him. "So you're going to let the Hyuga train you?" Sarutobi asked. Naruto nodded. "And I get work with Hinata-chan too," he exclaimed, as Hinata turned bright red. "So you're going to allow him to work with your daughter, even with his problem? And how most of the village feels about him?" Sarutobi asked. Hinata actually responded. "He's Naruto-kun, not the Kyuubi," she proclaimed with a pout on her face. Sarutobi looked at Naruto, who smiled at Hinata's proclamation. "So you told her?" he asked. Naruto nodded and said, "I trust her with my life and wanted to make sure that she would trust me. So I told her my secret, and she told me hers." Hinata blushed at Naruto's statement, but didn't say anything. "I will talk to your sensei, Naruto-kun and Hinata-chan," Sarutobi said happily. Naruto looked at Sarutobi, but fear was evident in his eyes. "No, please don't tell Kakashi-sensei. I already told him about it, and worse yet, he'll ruin it by bringing Team and Sakura into this," Naruto explained. Sarutobi looked confused, and turned to Hayashi, who shared Naruto's worry. "I don't want the Uchiha boy near my daughter, and Naruto is looking to only get chakra control and social interaction lessons from my daughter. Neither of his teammates will help in this, and I actually believe that the Haruno girl will not help either of them." Naruto does have a precarious hold on himself, and with learning how to interact with people, I believe that the Haruno girl does not set a good example, Hayashi explained. Also, Sakura would hit me and I want to learn, not be hit if I make a mistake. I also know more about jutsu than Sakura. I'm not a fire type like team, Naruto said, as he saw Hayashi smirk at his constant berating of Sasuke. And what type are you? Sarutobi asked. I'm a wind type. Do you know anybody that's a wind type too? Naruto asked innocently, as he smirked in his head. Sarutobi looked up and smiled. As a matter of fact, my son, Asuma is a wind user, but if you want to get some training from him, you would have to clear it with Kakashi first. There is no way around that, sorry, he said in an apologetic tone. Naruto smiled and said, No problem, old man. I just want to get some extra training so I can become a great shinobi. I also want to get to know someone from my class, so that I could have a chance to grow up some. Sarutobi nodded, but also gave Hayashi a questioning look. He then excused himself and left the compound. Naruto looked at Hinata and smiled warmly. So we will work together after our normal team practices and then begin our work, he said happily. Hinata nodded and saw that her father also agreed with this situation. Chapter 4, and on to the Chunin exams. The next month seemed to fly by, as Naruto would spend his extra time either studying or training with Hinata. He would visit Ichiraku ramen shop occasionally, but also had Hinata help him buy some proper groceries. Hinata also took him to a tailor to get a new outfit at his request. The outfit that he got was mostly black with orange and white on it. Hinata had also grown during this month of training. She would still blush at closeness to Naruto, but the close contact of having to show him how to do advanced chakra control training, and it had finally pulled her out of her shell. Working with Haku or Haru, as she called herself, also helped in gaining confidence, since she had problems with talking to Hashio about her affections towards Naruto. Hinata and Haru became close friends, and Sarutobi eventually gave Haku permission to tell Hinata their secret. Naruto found that he really liked being around Hinata, and she found that she could help him with his social etiquette problems. While Hinata grew more in love with Naruto, she sadly found out that Naruto was just learning about love and really didn't have a clue what to do or how to react. They also agreed to keep their improvements a secret from others, as much as possible. Kurenai did eventually figure it out by following Hinata after practice, but when she found that Hinata was working with Naruto on learning things that he was supposed to learn in the academy, she offered to help him with his learning. She also figured out that they were having a blossoming relationship, but wanted them to take their time to help Naruto figure out how to navigate a relationship. It did help that the girl he was having a relationship with was in love with him, was patient, and wanted it to succeed. The next month showed more promise, as Naruto was able to do missions, annoy his teammates, and pull the wool over his sensei's eyes. Kakashi had no idea how much Naruto had improved. Naruto also introduced Hinata to the Shadow Clone Jutsu, but he warned her never to make more than one, at least until her reserves were much larger. This was done under the watchful eye of Kurenai, who was impressed with the results the two had accomplished. Naruto was also able to cut his first leaf at this point and wondered if he could find some wind jutsu to learn. Naruto found out that Konoha truly didn't have many wind jutsu. By the end of the month, he was able to pull his wind chakra out to use it, as a way to deflect thrown objects like kunai or shuriken. Hinata was able to work on both her flexibility and started to work on a new jutsu, the Guardian 8 trigrams, 64 palms. This jutsu utilized her chakra control and making a shield with it by dragging the chakra thread around herself and cutting anything that came into the area. Naruto tried to keep close attention to any differences that he could remember from the dream and what was actually happening. He found some very subtle differences, but nothing major. About a week before the Chunin exams were to arrive, he decided that he couldn't stand it any longer and had to tell someone, just to get the stress of knowing off his mind. He set up an elaborate dinner at his apartment for him and Hinata so that he could discuss things. He needed more input to try to figure things out. Right now he was going on autopilot and wasn't sure where he would end up or if he would screw things up. Naruto stood waiting for Hinata in the front foyer of the Hyuga complex. Hayashi stood with him. So you're going to ask her on an actual date? He asked in a hard tone. Naruto nodded and then said, Hayashi-sama, I have come to like your daughter very much over the last couple months. I don't know if I'm in love just yet, but I feel very fond of her. She means the world to me right now, and as my best friend she has helped me grow tremendously. I'm not the bumbling, ignorant boy who pulled pranks, like before. Thanks to your daughter I've matured some, but I figure I'll always be a kid at heart and that won't change. I also have figured that my pranks helped me with my abilities to set traps and stealth. I have come to like our arrangement so far. Your work with Hinata has been phenomenal. While she still stutters around the household and around the village, I can tell it is only an act instead of how she used to be. As of this moment, I see no downside to what is going on between the two of you. I appreciate that you keep your relationship very low-key and don't advertise it. Until you can make a name for yourself, an overt relationship with my daughter might put her in danger, Hayashi explained. Because of what I am, she's in danger. There are people out there that want to take the QB away from me and use it for evil purposes. I thank you for allowing me to spend time with Hinata-chan and the chakra training. All have helped me in ways I couldn't have imagined. Hinata-chan and Kurenai-sensei have also helped fill in the gaps in my learning at the academy. We're studying for the Chunin exams and hope our sensei will enter us. I have hopes we will make Chunin, but understand if we either aren't entered or don't get promoted. As it is hard to get promoted, Naruto said happily. I'm glad you're not taking your duties for granted and focusing only on your relationship with Hinata, Hayashi replied. Naruto sighed and said, there is still a long ways to go before I understand what love, or even what I'm doing in a relationship. Hinata-chan is great. I couldn't have asked for someone better to care for me. She is kind, patient, and beautiful. Hinata was standing around the corner and blushed profusely at Naruto's statement. Just remember that she is my daughter and I will not stand for you taking advantage of her, Hayashi said in a harsh voice. You can count on me, Hayashi-sama. I'll treat her right. I really do care for her and don't want to hurt her. We're also young and I want to have a girlfriend who will eventually become my wife. Not hurt her and find someone else, Naruto admitted. You have little to worry about that, Naruto-kun, since we continue to work on both of ourselves. As time has passed, I'm even sure that I picked the right boy to give my love to, Hinata said, as she rounded the corner. We must leave now, father, since some elders and Niji-Nizan is coming this way. Hayashi nodded and closed the door behind the two and acted as if he were taking a walk around the complex. He greeted the elders and Niji as they passed by him, continuing their conversation. Naruto and Hinata changed their appearance with a transformation jutsu and headed to his apartment. They didn't say anything the entire trip. Naruto opened the door and allowed Hinata to enter the room first. After taking off their sandals and removing their transformation jutsu, they sat at the table and waited for Naruto to apply a privacy seal on the room. Thank you, Naruto-kun, you're kind and that is one of the reasons I love you, Hinata said with a blush. Naruto smiled shyly and began to put the food on the table for them to eat. A shadow clone then acted as waiter for the couple. Naruto took a deep breath and then sighed heavily. Hinata-chan, he said, but didn't continue. Hinata noticed him looking down at the food and not really eating, so she asked, What's wrong, Naruto-kun? Naruto looked up at her and his eyes looked conflicted, but he said, I don't know how to say this. Hinata's heart stopped, as she thought, what is going on? Is he going to stop seeing me? Please no. I love him too much to let that happen. Please, Naruto-kun, I'll do anything, but please don't leave me, she said with horror written on her face and her eyes ready to burst into tears. Naruto stood up and moved to hug her. No, Hinata-chan, I'm not leaving you. I just have so much to explain and don't know where to start. I really like what we have and want it to go further. I actually think I want to spend the rest of my life with you. That is if you'll have me, he said in a dejected tone. Hinata looked into his eyes and saw the sincerity in his eyes, but still asked, Really? Do you mean it? Naruto nodded and said, Yes, Hinata-chan, I do. I want to be with you forever. He gently squeezed the girl in his arms only to feel her squeeze him an iron grip. Hinata-chan he said in a pained voice. Hinata realized how hard she was squeezing him and lessened the pressure, but refused to let go. Sorry, Naruto-kun, she said quietly. That's all right, Hinata-heim. I need to tell you something that is on my mind and our relationship isn't what has me frustrated, he explained. I'm sorry I doubted you, Naruto-kun. What is it that is troubling you? She asked as she released him. He sat down and put his hand on the table, which she quickly took. I had a dream a while back and several things in it have come true. I used this dream to change a few things and I've also tried not to change too many things, he explained, much to the confusion of Hinata. Naruto then began to explain the mission to Wave where he met Haku and Zabuza, and then went into detail about the dream. Hinata listened intently, as he told the story of his dream and how things happened to him over the supposed next several years. He told her of Sasuke's betrayal, the adventures that Naruto went on like retrieving Tsunade to become the 5th Hokage, his fights with Gaara, Sasuke, Akatsuki and several others including Madara. He tried not to leave out a single detail, even revealing the fact that he met his father, the 4th Hokage, inside the seal with the fox and her actual confession of love during his fight with Pain. While Hinata had a few questions, she was amazed at the details and how current history was only slightly off from his dream. She understood that if he hadn't approached her father, it would have taken several years for her to actually admit her feelings for Naruto. She wondered then why he would actually want to pursue her instead of working on Sakura. So she asked, "Why did you choose me instead of Sakura-san?" Naruto chuckled, as he ate some of his cooling dinner. "I told you how she treated me in the dream and how my feelings were towards her," he said, and she nodded. His face then grimaced and he continued, "I thought about how the two of you treated me over time. While you shied away from me, she pushed my advances away. It was not as bad near the end, but I kept coming back to the fact that she would hit me if I did something wrong. I didn't like that. You later on would treat me how I always wanted to be treated, with kindness and love. As I told you, I never got to choose in the dream, since Sasuke killed you both when I was going to tell you who I had chosen. While part of me ached for Sakura, the rest of me wanted you, since I felt more heartache with the idea of your death than Sakura's. You see, you're the one I wanted because I knew that you loved me. Even if the dream was only a dream then, I still stand by my choice of you, Hinata-chan." Naruto noticed her trembling and shaking, as he saw tears stream from her eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you, Hinata-chan," he exclaimed. She shook her head and asked, "Why did it take you so long to decide? In the dream, that is." Naruto scratched the back of his head and said, "I was an idiot and I don't want to be an idiot now. Your feelings for me are pure, and mine are almost as strong as yours. I feel like I've known you for a lifetime, even if it has only been a few years and I've gotten to know you closely for only a couple of months. I know I care more about you than anyone I've cared about anyone for as long as I can remember. If not wanting to lose you for any reason is love, then I love you. If the pain in my chest is any indication of what it feels like when you're not near, then my heart aches for you to be near me." Hinata dove over the table, tackling Naruto. She straddled him as tear fell upon his face. He smiled meekly in the hopes that she wasn't angry. She bent down and wrapped her arms around him and kissed him gently on the lips. As the kiss deepened, he felt something inside grow. His heart felt warm as he wrapped his arms around her. The breathing became intense, as neither wanted to relinquish the kiss, but both needed air, so they breathed hard through their noses. It almost sounded like animals rutting. After what seemed like forever, they finally broke and panted, since they needed to catch their breaths. Naruto smiled warmly into her pale eyes as he asked, "So you forgive this idiot for taking a lifetime to get to know you and find out that he loves you?" Hinata nodded as she kissed him again. This time the kiss was shorter, but their lips parted slowly. "What do we do now, Naruto-kun?" she asked, as her eyes were nearly exploding with tears of joy. "Well, since I have an idea on what the future is, but don't know which things I can change and which I can't, we should try to get stronger and learn as much as we can. I don't want to change the future too much so that we can avoid the bad things that are to come," he explained. "But with you telling me of your vision, haven't you already changed the future and with the Momochi also?" she asked, not wanting to surrender her position on him just yet. Naruto thought for a minute. "There have been some changes, but so far they are all minor. As far as I can figure, if we change something it can have a significant effect or have little to none at all. If I were to warn Gigi about the invasion on the village during the last part of the Chunin exams, we might not get the chance to participate at all. Thus the invasion might be lessened or worsened by such information. Say I was to tell everyone that the 4th was my father, how many would believe me and how many would want me imprisoned? Not to mention, what would IWA do with this information?" he asked in a serious tone. You're thinking too much into it, Naruto-kun. We have each other and my father's approval, she said happily. Naruto gently put both hands on her cheeks and lowered her head into a kiss. When he broke it, he asked, "Can I beat a jounin?" She shook her head, and he continued, "So why give out that information right now? If we use it to help us avoid bad things, then we can use it for the better. I was able to use what I learned from the vision to save Haku and Zabuza, and most importantly find love with you." Hinata shifted and lay down on his chest, but then asked, "But if we can't be together, why did you let me know about all of this?" "Like I said before, thanks to the dream I have begun to understand love, and I'm in love with you. Sakura was an infatuation or crush. You're real, you care for me and I care for you. Our training together has proven that. Also, I'm worried if we go into the Chunin exams and have to fight Niji. He really wanted to kill you because of the seal. In the vision, I made a blood oath to avenge you. I wouldn't do that lightly, Hinata-chan," he explained. "This all so much to take in at once," she said in a bewildered voice. "Imagine how it was for me when I woke up and was dealing with Haku-chan," he said, as he brushed her hair with his hand. She nodded but didn't move. Naruto figured she was still assimilating the information, as it was a lot to take in. He had taken a few hours to explain what were a few years of vision. Not an easy task. After a few minutes she sat up, much to Naruto's discomfort. She had grinded herself against his crotch, and he couldn't help but elicit a moan of pleasure. She smiled and did it again, only to turn bright red and bite her lip, as Naruto noticed her own eyes betray her own pleasure at what she had done. Naruto smiled and then said, "I think we should get back to the table before." He was interrupted by a clone when it said, "Get a room, you two. Hey, there is one that way." The clone pointed to Naruto's bedroom. Naruto and Hinata blushed at the implications and both stood up quickly, with her helping Naruto stand. Naruto knew both weren't ready for the relationship to move to that level, and he still had too many enemies to worry about. The rest of the evening was given over to discussing the vision and going into more detail about it. Naruto found that Hinata would prod him for information and he would recall more information than he thought he could. He did notice her get annoyed on several occasions with some of the things he had done in the visions. For instance, she was now weary of Haruna of Vegetable Country, since she feared that she might want to take Naruto away from her. She was outright angry at Naruto agreeing to help progress the line of priestess from Demon Country. Naruto had assured her that if it came to that, he would only allow it if she agreed and for helping out Cheyenne, who didn't appear to have anyone else. She said she would mill it over. She definitely wanted to rescue Isaribi from Orochimaru, and they discussed the implications of killing Sasuke at the Valley of the End. She feared that Naruto would likely be killed by Sasuke, and she would die of loneliness, just as she had found the boy of her dreams. Naruto chuckled, but understood her concerns. By the time they had finished dessert, it was nearly 2 in the morning. "So Haim, what do we do now?" he asked. "I guess I stay here, as it would be inappropriate for me to show up in these clothes at this hour. Could you send a clone to inform father?" she asked with a glint in her eye. Naruto looked at her with a questioning look. "Okay, but we can't play around, since we both have missions tomorrow and we'll need to be up early to get you back and changed for your mission," he explained, as he created a clone and sent it to the Hyuga residence. "Can I use one of your shirts for a nightie?" she asked. Naruto nodded and pointed to an old dresser in the bedroom. She moved quickly to the bedroom and discarded her dress right in front of Naruto's eyes. Naruto studied the silhouette and then snapped his fingers. Hinata jumped, as she turned holding the shirt to her chest with a questioning look. She stood only in her panties and the shirt covering only her breasts, and not very well. You were the girl at the waterfall. You're so beautiful, even in silhouette," he said, as she gasped, turned red and then dropped the shirt. Naruto, unprepared for this, promptly fainted at the sight of a bare-chested Hinata in only panties. Hinata quickly grabbed the shirt and put it on. She then dragged Naruto to the bed and undressed him, like she had done in so many of her dreams. She was a little angry at his state of malnourishment, but thought that they had addressed and would continue to address it. As she hung the kimonos in the closet, she saw Naruto wake up suddenly. "Did I just see you in the?" he asked as she nodded. He immediately put his hands over his head and begged for his life. "I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to be a pervert. Naruto calmed when a hand was placed on his bare shoulder. He peered through his arms to see a red, but smiling Hinata. It wasn't your fault, Naruto-kun, but I'm glad you find me attractive. Around the Hyuga my figure is considered somewhat unattractive, she admitted with a forlorn look. Naruto lifted her chin and kissed her gently. You're beautiful and will only get more so, Hinata-chan, he said with all the conviction in the world. Oh, your father said he will have your stuff ready at 6 in the morning for you, so that you can miss the guard change and slip in unnoticed. Hinata smiled, as she crawled into bed with Naruto. We can't do anything tonight, but then again we have our whole lives to do this, she said, as she snuggled up to Naruto, and he set the alarm so that they could make it to the Hyuga compound at 6 in the morning. Naruto slept like he had never had, and so did Hinata. She didn't like it, but also knew that Naruto was keeping up appearances of his crush on Sakura to a point. Naruto did his best to not show off his blossoming abilities to anyone other than Hinata, Hayashi, and Kurenai. Kiba and Naruto became better friends, as he seemed to start to spend more time with either Konohamaru and his friends or Team 8. Shino became a friend of Naruto when he pointed out a rare bug to him and thus earned the respect of the Aburame. Naruto made very sure not to outclass Sasuke at any time during missions or training. Kakashi did ask him how his taijutsu was improving without working on style. Naruto explained that he was taking time to work with others to try to get his taijutsu up to snuff, as this appeared to make Kakashi happy, since he didn't seem to push the issue. 2 days before the Chunin exams were to begin, Naruto made sure to keep an eye out for Konohamaru and his friends, since he knew it might be trouble. After a quick mission and almost getting into a fight with Sasuke, Naruto got a chuckle at Sakura trying to get a date from Sasuke, but Sasuke did have a point about her needing to improve herself. He then smirked as Konohamaru and his gang tried to sneak up on him disguised as square rock with eye holes in the front. The scene played out like it had in his dreams, more by his trying to not change things rather than any other reason. Finally, Sakura came up on the conversation. A ninja playing ninja? That is so lame, Sakura said. My skills are worse than his? Who are we kidding? She thought to herself. Naruto knew what coming next, but wanted to see if it would play out again. Hey boss, who is that girl anyways? Is she your girlfriend? Konohamaru asked with a sly grin. What? Sakura yelled. Naruto scratched the back of his head and replied, You could tell that she's really crazy about me, couldn't you? What? Sakura yelled, as she drew back and slugged Naruto. He turned his head slightly to cushion the blow, but was still thrown into the fence. What type of girlfriend are you? Konohamaru asked, as he surveyed the quivering body of Naruto. Hinata from behind the fence was rather angry with the treatment of her Naruto by Sakura, but understood why Naruto took the hit. We shall see if you improve, Sakura team, she thought, as she continued to watch with her Byakugan. She then smiled, as she heard Konohamaru yell at Sakura. You're a witch and you're ugly too, Konohamaru yelled, as he shook his fist at Sakura. Sakura cracked her knuckles and moved towards Konohamaru slowly. She then slammed her fist into his head. Are you all right, Konohamaru? Udan asked. Konohamaru and Naruto stood, as Konohamaru said, I don't even think she's human. I mean, look at her forehead. Sakura turned with an evil look upon her face and then ran at the foursome. The group began to run and rounded a corner. Konohamaru ran into something. You little shit. That hurt, a voice asked. Naruto looked up to see Kankuro and Temari standing in the street. Kankuro reached down and lifted Konohamaru by the front of his shirt. Does this hurt? Put him down, Kankuro, or you know you'll pay for it later, Temari said in a worried tone. I'm sorry, we were sort of messing around, Sakura said meekly. Naruto growled at Kankuro, but then said, I have 2 reasons for you to let him go. Kankuro smiled and asked, And what would those be, weakling? Naruto walked forward and pointed at Konohamaru. He's the grandson of the Hokage. He then pointed to the tree beside the road, and he won't be happy. A rock suddenly hit Kankuro's wrist and he let go of Konohamaru. He then looked up into the tree, as he paled at the sight of Gaara standing upside down on the tree limb behind Sasuke. Gaara? He asked quietly. What are you doing in our village? Sasuke asked, as he gently tossed a rock into the air and caught it. He then proceeded to crush the rock. Naruto watched Temari blush at the sight of Sasuke. He just rolled his eyes and thought, he must just be eye candy for girls. Sasuke-kun, Sakura purred out, as both she and Moegi had hearts in their eyes. Naruto again rolled his eyes at the females of the species. Kankuro, stop. You're an embarrassment to our village? And did you forget the mission? Gaara asked. Kankuro backed away from the Naruto and crew and said, but they started it. Gaara looked at Sasuke and said, sorry about this. He then disappeared in a swirl of sand. He then reappeared in between Temari and Kankuro. What are you doing here? I can tell from your headbands that you're from Suna. You may be allies of the Leaf, but it is forbidden to be in each other's village without permission. Depending on your answer, we may not be able to let you go, Sakura said angrily. Naruto smirked and said, you're here for the Chunin exams, aren't you? Temari smiled and then said, you're smarter than you look, but you're right. Naruto smiled. As Temari winked at Naruto, Hinata became angry, but quickly simmered down, since Naruto didn't even respond. Sasuke jumped down and yelled at Gaara, hey, what's your name? Temari turned and smiled at Sasuke. She then asked, you mean me? Sasuke scowled, shook his head, and said, the one with the gourd on his back. Gaara of the dessert, he replied, but then asked, I was also interested in you, your name. I'm Uchiha Sasuke, he said, as Sakura blushed and Naruto rolled his eyes, but then looked up into the tree and saw the Sound Genin team. Gaara and his team vanished from sight, as did the Sound team. Naruto smirked and headed to the park to play with Hinata, Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udon. The rest of the day was spent playing with the kids. Naruto later told Hinata that she might get mad at him for what he was planning to do, but assured her it would not affect their relationship. She trusted him now with her life and purity, so she figured he was up to something and that had to keep it secret. Naruto then escorted Hinata home, only to have a meeting with Hayashi. They quickly established that Naruto was on his best behavior with Hinata the night before, but he did see her in an inappropriate manner. While Hayashi was unnerved, he wasn't angry, as he had the betrothal papers all ready to go at a moment's notice. Naruto chuckled as he approached the bridge. This was going to be a silly argument between the two of them if it played out right. Naruto approached. He had spent extra time talking Hinata to her team's meeting. Hinata's team was happy to see Naruto and asked if Naruto was treating Hinata right. Naruto spent the next hour reassuring them that he was being a gentleman with her. Sakura began her rant. Hey, how can this be allowed? Why does he tell us to be someplace and then make us wait? She yelled at the top of her lungs. Naruto snickered then yelled, yeah, Sakura-chan is right. What about the feelings of a young girl who overslept and didn't have time to blow dry her hair? She yelled. Naruto decided to lie and play along. Yeah, I overslept too, so I didn't wash my face or brush my teeth. See? He yelled, as he then blew his open mouth at Sakura. That is disgusting. Wait, your breath smells minty fresh, she exclaimed in confusion. Naruto laughed at her confusion, but Naruto watched as Sasuke wore a look of utter annoyance. This warmed Naruto's heart. Yo, I got lost on the road of life, Kakashi exclaimed from on top of the archway at the end of the bridge. Liar, now apologize, Sakura yelled. Kakashi looked at Naruto in confusion, as if waiting for him to complain. What? I want an actual explanation. If it's good, then I will forgive him, he said, but then his face turned into a maniacal grin. He then continued, if not, it will be my turn to use the 1,000 years of death jutsu on you, sensei. Kakashi's eye went wide for an instant, but then returned to normal. This is sudden, but I happen to have nominated you for the Chunin selection exams, he explained. He then handed out the exam applications and said, here are your applications. Naruto grinned evilly and then jumped onto Kakashi. That's perfect, Kakashi-sensei, he exclaimed. Stop it. Let go, Naruto, Kakashi exclaimed as Naruto let him go. He then continued, just understand this is only just a nomination. Whether you take the exam is up to each of you individually. Those of you that want to take it should sign the application and be at the academy to turn it in at room 301 by 4 p.m. tomorrow. That's it, have fun. Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke. The trio walked through the archways away from the bridge. Naruto kept his mouth shut, as he remembered what happened in the vision. He also turned and looked at Sakura only to see her look very depressed. He kept it to himself but hoped she would get over it, since he knew they all needed to go to get entrance to the exams. Naruto spent a little time playing Recover the Child with Iruka, since he was acting like a foreign shinobi and abducting Moegi. Naruto recovered her easily. Naruto and Hinata met up later that day and talked about what they were going to do in the Chunin exams. He informed her not to worry about him if he couldn't answer any questions, since it wouldn't matter anyways. She then kissed him passionately, as a good luck charm. He then traveled to the tea house to meet with Sakura and Sasuke. He played dumb about signing the application in a way to help bring Sakura out of her doldrums. The group finally made it to the academy and found it full of foreign shinobi. A smile graced Naruto's face as he watched the scene play out between Lee's team and the Chunin guards trying to fool the Chunin hopefuls. Naruto sighed, since he knew what was coming. Let us pass and drop the genjutsu. We're going to the 3rd floor, Sasuke proclaimed. So you noticed, Izumo in a younger form said. Naruto rolled his eyes at what happened next. Sasuke actually praised Sakura, much to her surprise. Sakura, you must have noticed it first, right? Sasuke asked. Huh? Sakura quietly asked. You have the best analytical and genjutsu skills on our team, so I'm sure you saw right through it, Sasuke said. Sakura blushed and then became very confident. Of course I noticed, because this is the 2nd floor, she exclaimed. Naruto watched as his improved vision was able to follow Kotetsu attempt to attack Sasuke, only for Lee stop both of their attacks without any effort. Neji and Tenten shook their heads and Neji asked, What happened to the plan? You're the one who said we shouldn't show our strength. Naruto smiled at what came next. Lee approached Sakura and said, I'm Rock Lee and yours is Sakura. Will you be my girlfriend? I'll die to protect you. Sakura raised an eyebrow and said, No way, you're a loser. Lee looked crushed, but Neji found a way to liven up the conversation. Hey you, what is your name? Naruto scowled at yet another girl blushing. Since she looked at Sasuke, Tenten was the guilty party this time. Oh well, I'm glad I have Hinata-chan, he thought, as he got ready for the pissing contest between Neji and Sasuke. You should give your name first if you want to know someone else's, Sasuke explained. You're Rookie of the Year, right? How old are you? Neji asked. Sasuke smirked and replied, I don't have to answer to you. Naruto chuckled at the two boys, all the while thinking, pissing into the wind will still get you wet and covered in urine. Naruto knew what was coming next, so he just faked indifference. Sorry Bushibrow, but Sasuke needs to learn some of your taijutsu to get Oro team to give him a love kiss, he thought to himself, as he chuckled at Rock Lee challenging Sasuke. The fight, if you could call it that, lasted no more than a minute, since Naruto decided to not interfere. He did get a good laugh out of Lee trying to seduce Sakura most unsuccessfully. After Lee knocked Sasuke for a loop and Sakura saved him from splattering on the floor, he turned around to miss the scene of Guy and Lee hugging to a sunset background. Naruto and the team hurried up to the exam room, Sasuke a little worse for wear. They met up with Kakashi, where he told them about the having to be a team to enter the first part of the exam. Naruto was thankful for the vision, insofar as it gave him insight he wouldn't have and would have made a fool of himself. Sasuke was immediately glommed onto by Ino, which caused a fight between Sakura and Ino. Shikamaru complained about their actions, and Naruto couldn't fault him for his complaint. Ino was loud and obnoxious, sort of like he was a lot of the time. Hey, if the shoe fits, he thought as he did some self-incrimination. He greeted Team 8 and blushed at the sight of Hinata, who in turn blushed back. Naruto waited for Kabuto to show, and as if on cue, he started to complain about the noise of the rookie genin. He had to agree even if he wasn't the one making all the commotion. Naruto watched carefully, as Kabuto followed the vision nearly perfectly. After giving information on Rock Lee and Gaara, he warned the rookies about how hard the test was going to be. Naruto knew that he was beginning to shake, but it was with anticipation. Sakura attempted to console him, but found out that he was not scared when he yelled, "I'm Uzumaki Naruto and I'm not going to lose to any of you. You got that?" Sasuke smirked at the statement while Sakura just thought Naruto was an idiot. Ino questioned his sanity, but Hinata smiled warmly at his proclamation. Naruto ducked under the attempted sleeper hold and endured the proclamation from Sakura that he was an idiot. Naruto and Hinata watched carefully as the sound trio attacked Kabuto. Hinata nodded after the attack that she had seen what was going on with the attack. Naruto and Sakura consoled Kabuto, Naruto in an attempt to curry favor with the spy, and Sakura in a show of compassion. Ibiki and his Chunin examiners showed up. Naruto was able to pick up number 53, while Hinata got 54, so they sat next to each other. Naruto watched as it sunk into Hinata that his vision was of the future. He waited for Ibiki to finish his explanation of the rules before he looked at the test. He found the same questions, as he remembered in the vision, so he filled them out much to the surprise of his teammates, who watched in awe as Naruto completed the test. Naruto stuck his tongue out at one of the examiners, who just smiled back at him. He noticed Hinata finish. They both turned their papers over and then waited for the next 30 minutes for the final question to be asked. Naruto sat back as Ibiki asked the final question. After several, including Kiba, questioned the legitimacy of Ibiki banning Genin from ever becoming Chunin, Naruto kept an eye on Hinata for the moment that he might need to reinforce Sakura's belief in herself and Naruto. The hands started to go up like there was no tomorrow, and then he saw the nod from Hinata. He raised his hand and then slammed it down on the table. "Don't underestimate me. I won't run or hide. I'll take your damn question. Even if it means I'll be a Genin forever. I will become Hokage anyways, so I don't care. I'm not afraid of you," he proclaimed. This had stopped the teams from leaving and left 78 individuals, or 26 teams. Naruto, Hinata, and Ibiki were the only ones not surprised when Anko burst through the window and announced her presence. Naruto smiled warmly at the banner, which read, "I'm Mitarashi Anko, your second examiner." Anko surveyed the room and saw the look on Naruto's face and was taken aback. She quickly corrected her slip and complained to Ibiki for being too easy on the Genin. Naruto laughed at the interchange, but only lightly. She ordered the remaining Genin to follow her to the next place for the exams, Practice Area 44, also known as the Forest of Death. "You'll soon find out why it's called the Forest of Death," Anko said in a menacing tone. Naruto decided to follow the vision so that he could do what was needed. "You'll soon find out why it's called the Forest of Death," he said in a sarcastic tone. "You have spunk," Anko said, as she threw a kunai and nicked Naruto's face. She reappeared right behind Naruto and began to lick the cut. She then said, "Kids like you are the first to die, spraying that red blood I so love." Naruto slipped his hand under Anko's skirt, over her fishnet pants and into her panties, leaving a note he had prepared earlier. He did notice the blush on Anko's face, as he did accidentally brush against the fur under her panties. He then quickly pulled his hand from there and moved it up to cut on his face. Suddenly a long tongue appeared with the missing kunai that she had flung. Anko put aside that this little twerp had put his hands not only up her skirt, but into her panties. But seeing as he didn't do anything like try to feel her up or anything of the like, she would try to forgive him. She shifted and felt paper rub against her inside her panties, as she began to address the grass Genin. "So the twerp left me a something. I'll read it first then kill him later," she thought to herself. "You know it isn't nice to sneak up on someone like that, Genin," she said loudly. "My apologies, Proctor, but I thought that I would return your kunai," the grass Genin said, as Anko took it from her tongue. She went on to explain the rules surrounding the exam, namely that they had to sign a waiver for possible deaths and that they would have to gather a complete set of scrolls. One, they were to be given one and they had to acquire a second one from another team. The teams gathered, handed in their forms, got their scroll and then moved to their assigned gates and the teams entered the forest. Anko walked into the shack and put her hand under her skirt and removed the note from her panties. She noted that it was on stationery and folded quite intricately. She then opened it and noticed the smell of dangos emanating from the note. She began to read. "Dear Anko Nizan, Sorry for slipping this into your intimates, but I had no other real options, and want to apologize for it yet again. I would like you to give the note sealed at the bottom of this note to the old man Hokage. I trust you and respect you like an older sister, and figured that with you cutting me, it would be easier to slip this to you below the waistline rather than during your explanation at the beginning of the exams. The grass genin that gave you back your kunai is a fake, and you can find the bodies of the real ones near the cemetery. I would send someone to check this out other than yourself and send the second message to the Hokage as soon as possible. Now before you freak out, read what I have to say and then get to work. Orochimaru was the grass genin in disguise. He killed the grass genin so that he could put a curse seal on my teammate Sasuke, since he wants the Sharingan. Now if you want to go after him, take some help, more than likely an ANBU or 12, since he is a Sannin and even with the Kyuubi I can't take him on. Heck, the old man would be hard-pressed to take him down. He has perfected his immortality jutsu, so he will know more than he did before in odd ways, that is. Please be careful and don't go after him alone. I worry about the other pariah of Konoha. Again, please don't take him on alone. If you do meet him, he will say not to stop the exam. I tend to agree, since it will lead to other things that we are not ready for. Oh, and for defiling your panties, I'm going to treat you to some dango later. Again, sorry for this, but I couldn't think of another way to get the note to you without attracting unwanted attention or ruining my chances of becoming a chunin. Yorotudo. Uzumaki Naruto. Anko was beside herself. Here was a gaki in the chunin exams who had done what several of the male population of Konoha would have loved to do, get into her panties, and what did he do? He left a warning note, and the strange part was that it had information in it that he shouldn't have known until after he went into the forest. She quickly pulled up her skirt too and pulled out her panties to make sure the kid didn't leave anything else there. After verifying that nothing was there, she opened the seal and called a trio of chunin over and sent them off do things for her. The first was to give the Hokage the letter from Naruto, the second was to check for bodies at the cemetery, and the third was to get a squad of ANBU for her to go after a snake. Naruto blushed as his team traveled through the forest. He was sure that Anko was crazy, but her pulling her skirt up and then checking her panties for anything else took the cake. At least he did have one question answered for his perverted mind, that her hair color certainly was natural. This information came to him from a clone that had changed into a bug and he had placed on her skirt when he placed the note. Naruto sighed relief, since he also knew that she had dispatched a few chunin to do, as he had asked her to do. Naruto felt the urge to go to the bathroom and said, I need to take a leak, so I'll be back in a second, fully knowing that he would get caught, but he also figured on how he would escape. He waited to feel the quick hit to the back of the head and cushioned it with moving his head forward. He landed in a heap on the ground and kept his eyes closed. He then felt rope being wrapped around him and tied tightly. Naruto had flexed his muscles while the assailant was doing his work, to give him some slack so that he could more easily escape. He listened, as his assailant left the area to go and get beat up by Sasuke. Naruto cut the rope and headed back to the clearing and watched as the aim shinobi ended up behind Sasuke. Naruto threw a kunai and watched as the enemy jumped away. You won't get away, he yelled, in mock frustration. Sasuke had grabbed the kunai with chakra on his foot and sent it at the aim shinobi. He then proceeded to pummel the aim shinobi and then stab him in the left arm. This had the effect of driving the enemy away. They then proceeded to work on a code word for the team if they were separated. Naruto knew that even if he remembered it, he didn't have to, since they expected him to not know it. Sometimes he hated knowing what was going to happen, one big deja vu session. As soon as the code word was given, Orochimaru showed up in the guise of a grass shinobi and blew the team apart. He looked forward and saw a shadow. Great, here we go. Getting eaten by a snake summons on my list of things not to do, but I think I can get around it or just kill it like I did in my vision, he thought as the snake swallowed him whole. Guess we go with plan B, multi-shadow clone jutsu, he proclaimed, as hundreds of Naruto filled the stomach of the snake to bursting. The snake exploded in an orgy of snake guts. Naruto quickly sped off to get to his team. Naruto watched in morbid fascination as Sakura and Sasuke fought for their lives against Orochimaru, knowing that if he did too much he might change things to the point where he didn't know what was going on. He watched as Sasuke fought and defeated a snake and forced Orochimaru to leave the snake and slither up a tree to try to get to Sasuke. Naruto chuckled lightly as a thought hit him. He quickly wrapped a piece of paper around a kunai and threw it and some shuriken at Orochimaru. He then yelled, as the weapons halted Orochimaru's progress up the tree, "I'm sorry, Sasuke. I forgot the code word." This caused everyone to look at Naruto and not notice the paper bomb attached to the kunai. It exploded. Sasuke said, "This one is on a whole other level." He was going to continue his rant, but was interrupted by the explosion that sent Orochimaru into a large branch. Naruto smirked, as Orochimaru picked himself up off a branch several meters away. "So you got away from my snake, Naruto-kun?" he asked in mock surprise. He then continued, "You have an interesting way of attacking an enemy. I like your style." Naruto watched, as Sasuke's resolve broke and he offered Orochimaru the scroll. Luckily, Naruto had given him one of the ones he had palmed from Anko. No need to lose it needlessly, and if Anko's was a fake then so be it. Sasuke threw the pilfered scroll at Orochimaru, as he praised Sasuke for using an old tactic of giving a predator a different objective to avert them from themselves. Naruto jumped and took the scroll from the air, landing next to Sasuke, as he yelled at Naruto, "You bastard! What are you doing? You don't understand the situation." Naruto smiled inwardly as he punched Sasuke. "So the great Sasuke is either a fake or has lost his nerve. So are you a coward or are you a fake?" he asked angrily. Sasuke wore a look of surprise. "I'm the real Sasuke," he proclaimed. "Right? The Sasuke I know isn't going to be intimidated by this guy to the point of not being able to understand the situation. I don't know how strong this idiot is, but even if you give him the scroll, are you sure he will let us go?" Naruto asked pointedly. Orochimaru laughed and said, "Naruto-kun, you are correct, since I can just kill you and then take the scroll." Naruto watched as a familiar thing occurred. Orochimaru bit his thumb and streaked it down a tattoo on his left arm, as he then began a series of hand seals. "Shut up, you bastard!" Naruto yelled, as he ran towards Orochimaru. He didn't use all of his speed, since he didn't want to reveal his true abilities just yet. He knew deep down that he was no match for Orochimaru and would be slaughtered if Orochimaru took him seriously. But he needed put forth the effort to look convincing for all involved. Sasuke all the while was telling Naruto to run away. "Summoning Jutsu," Orochimaru proclaimed, as he rose up on a new snake summons. Naruto saw the tail coming and braced for the expected hit, as he knew from his vision if he jumped he would be hit, so why tinker with the vision just yet? Naruto began to focus and pull some of the Kyuubi chakra, not enough for others to notice, just enough to enhance his senses and his abilities some. Orochimaru smiled, since he saw Naruto thrown into the air. "You may eat him, my pet," he said in a nonchalant tone. Naruto chuckled inwardly, as things were going according to his vision. "Eat this," he proclaimed, as he slammed his fist into the snake. This broke the branch the snake was on and sent the snake to the forest floor, while Orochimaru looked at him in surprise. He then smiled and literally blew him away into a tree. Naruto cushioned the impact, but appeared to be hurt. Naruto was going to enjoy what happened next. Orochimaru turned his attention towards Sasuke and said, "It's now your turn, Sasuke-kun. What are you going to do?" Sakura screamed, as the snake approached Sasuke, but Naruto was there to stop it less than a meter away from Sasuke. Sasuke looked astonished that Naruto had stopped the snake cold in its tracks from eating Sasuke. He then went wide-eyed, as he noticed Naruto's red eyes. "Hey, are you alright, scared cat?" Naruto said in a teasing voice, but was actually quite winded from the actual task of stopping the snake. Naruto knew pain was coming and braced himself for it, as he felt Orochimaru's tongue wrap around him. "Damn it! Let go of me, you pedophile!" he yelled. "Oh my, aren't we a troublemaker? 5-part seal?" Orochimaru said, only loud enough for Naruto here, as he finished a couple hand seals and his fingers began to erupt in fire. He then thrust them into Naruto's stomach. "Here comes the pain," Naruto screamed mentally, as he heard Sakura scream and felt himself being thrown away from Orochimaru like some unwanted garbage. He felt the impact into the tree, the falling, and a sudden stop before he lost consciousness. Naruto woke to a sharp pain to the top of his head. "Damn it, Choji. Give me the stick and I'll whack you with it." "That hurt!" he exclaimed. This brought attention to him. Naruto scowled at Choji and said, "No more ramen contests for you. Heck, I might even tell Ichiraku what you did." Choji frowned at Naruto's statement. "Man, you really know how to hurt a guy, Naruto," Shikamaru said in a bored tone. "Yeah, but did he have to hit me? He could have just used some water or something," Naruto explained. "I guess, but your reaction was better," Shikamaru replied, as he looked up, but then turned back to Naruto and dodged a kunai that was loosely thrown at him by Naruto. "Hey, what was that for?" Naruto began to laugh and replied, "You should see your reaction." He then stuck his tongue out at Shikamaru, who just rolled his eyes. "So how did helping us out go, you guys?" Naruto asked, much to the surprise of everyone in the clearing. "Hey Lee, thanks for the save." Again he surprised everyone by his statements. "How did you know Lee saved us?" Sakura asked. "Look how beat up everyone is. Lee most of all. He is bleeding from the ear and looks exhausted," Naruto explained. "His power of observation bears watching," Neji thought to himself. Naruto watched, as Sakura gave Lee a parting compliment and Lee told her that the leaf lotus blooms twice. Naruto smiled, since he knew what Lee meant. After some visiting, the other teams dispersed, and Naruto found that he was missing the scroll he was carrying. He still had a match set, but he wanted to make sure that they would get a replacement because he didn't trust the one that he had left from Enko was a real one or not. So they would have to continue and either try to find Kabuto to help them get another or find another team and hope that they had the right scroll. Naruto bided his time and waited for the right time to get Kabuto to come to the camp. He didn't like it, but if he could use his vision to his advantage, then he would. The next day or so was spent fishing and camping. Naruto came to the idea that currently Sakura was way too shallow for his tastes and preferred Hinata-chan. Sakura kept on bugging Sasuke for this or that, and ignored her teammate, even though he didn't ask for much other than information. Kabuto showed up and denied Sasuke a fight, but also agreed to go with them. Naruto killed a centipede as they approached the tower on the last night. Naruto knew from his vision that an AIM team was going to be waiting for them, so he improvised. He sent a shadow clone along with his team and waited for them to make a couple rounds. Naruto's clone and Kabuto noticed the centipede and began to formulate a plan to take out the AIM team, but Naruto had already worked out a plan on his own. He knew with the new seal in place his chakra was limited, but also his control was marginally worse, so he created several clones and seeded the area. When the AIM team began to attack, Naruto sent his clones into action by taking out 2 of them immediately. He also knew if he killed them here, he might not meet up with Aoi and help Idate, so he tied them up after knocking them out. He then proceeded to finish the plan made with Kabuto on the last one. His reserves were higher now than in the vision, so he had more staying power this time. After taking out the last of the AIM shinobi, the group headed towards the tower. Naruto was tired, but had reasonable levels of strength left. Kabuto was slightly injured, but nothing serious. Kabuto met up with his team and the teams parted ways. Naruto and his team entered the tower through the prescribed door and opened the scrolls. Iruka came from the summoning scroll as expected, at least in Naruto's opinion. He was excited to see his friend and teacher again. Iruka imparted some wisdom on the genin team. For Naruto, it was to use his mind more, and for Sakura, it was to train her body harder. Naruto tried, but couldn't stop Iruka stating his concern for Naruto. Naruto used what he had seen in the vision to stamp out this concern quickly. He told Iruka that he was a ninja now and didn't need to be babysat, in short. Naruto and his team entered the arena and found the others that had passed the second part of the exam. Naruto winked at Hinata as he passed her, which she returned with a blush. Naruto had already gone over the speech that the Hokage was giving, so he basically tuned it out. He went into his mind in an attempt to contact the Kyuubi, if only for a moment. He found himself in a familiar sewer. He entered the room that contained the demon, spirit of Kyuubi. He looked around and found chains in front of the bars and the Kyuubi sleeping behind the chains and bars. He approached the chains and felt pain increase with each step, so he stopped his approach. He then backed up and observed for a moment, then he left back to the real world. Naruto took his place up on the balcony close to Hinata, but not close enough to cause people to catch any idea that they may have a relationship. Naruto watched as Sasuke struggled with Orochimaru's henchman Yoroi. He did eventually win by using a modified version of Lee's taijutsu, and calling it the Lion's Barrage. Kakashi took Sasuke away to have his Hiki sealed. Shino then went against Zaku, as Zaku underestimated Shino and blew his own arms open with chakra. Kankuro made short work of Misumi, another of Orochimaru's lackeys. Naruto knew that he would have to give Sakura some encouragement to at least tie with Ino. He knew that neither of them were ready to be Chunin quite yet. It ended with a double knockout. Tenten got beaten by Temari, with wind-beating long-range weapons. The sixth match pitted Shikamaru's intelligence versus Kin's genjutsu. She didn't have a chance and knocked herself out with the help of Shikamaru's shadow possession jutsu. The seventh match was now upon him, and to his sadness it was against Kiba. Kiba, with all the bravado, claimed he would win. Naruto smirked and waited to begin. Naruto thought it would be fun to play around this time. So at the start he created 2 shadow clones and transformed himself into a lone stone on the arena floor. Kiba performed a beast mimicry jutsu, while the Naruto clones imitated Kiba, and now there were 4 feral Kibas facing each other in the arena. Now that was unexpected, but he will have to do more than that to fool Kiba, Kakashi said in an admiring tone. Kiba lifted his nose and smelled the air. He then turned to the Kiba on his left and hit him. "I know you're Naruto. What? Didn't you think I could smell you?" he asked angrily. The Kiba he hit turned to smoke and turned into Akamaru. He looked at the body in surprise. "This is to be expected from the class clown," Kakashi said quietly in his running commentary. The Kiba across from his copied his attack, and the Kiba to his right also turned to Akamaru. He then turned to Kiba and shrugged. Kiba attacked that one with a right hook and again was rewarded by an unconscious Akamaru lying before him. He then felt wire wrap around him and a kunai pressed to his throat. "Very clever, Naruto. How did you fool me?" Kiba asked the Naruto standing behind him while he saw 3 Akamarus on the ground. "You didn't notice your surroundings as well as you think you did. I was a rock," Naruto whispered into his ear. "Proctor, I wish to claim victory. Do you concede, Kiba? I know you're strong enough, but you got fooled by the master," Naruto said in a mildly dejected tone. Kiba nodded and replied, "I forfeit. I might win, but it would be too much trouble and might hurt myself seriously, and the kunai in the crotch is incentive enough, Naruto." Everyone looked down and saw a second Naruto with a kunai pointed at Kiba's groin. "The winner is Uzumaki Naruto," Heiei proclaimed, while Naruto released Kiba from the wire and dispersed the clone. Naruto and Kiba headed up to the balcony and were greeted by Hinata. "You both did very well," she praised both boys. "I agree, but Naruto, that was hitting a little below the belt, literally. Don't you think?" Kurenai asked with a smirk on her face. "He won and Kiba is in one piece, isn't he?" Kakashi asked. Both boys growled at Kakashi. Naruto got next to Hinata and asked in a whispered tone, "You know he is still stronger than you, right?" Hinata nodded and smiled at Naruto, but he continued, "I will cheer you on, but I don't want you to get as close to dying as you did in my vision. So if he goes for a fatal blow, avoid it. I know you have the speed in you for a short burst." Hinata nodded, just as her name appeared on the board for her to go against her cousin. She noticed the evil smirk cross his face. Niji moved down to the arena and waited for Hinata to approach the proctor. "You know you will lose today. Fate has determined it," Niji declared in an authoritative voice. Hinata looked sadly at her cousin and waited for the proctor to begin the match. Niji activated his Byakugan, as did Hinata. "Nizan, you are wrong about so many things," Hinata said quietly. Niji looked at his cousin and then angrily replied, "These eyes see everything. Yours seem disturbed, as if you were not sure you can bring yourself to fight against me and uphold the honor of our clan. You're pathetic." Hinata activated her Byakugan without hand seals. "You know, Nizan, I could end this match without having to fight you, but you would learn nothing from that." He suddenly paled at the sight of a single hand seal. "You would use that on me?" he asked in a terrified tone. "To keep you from attempting to kill me, yes I would. Now you will listen to me, Niji Nizan," she said in an authoritative tone. Niji stood at rest, knowing that he couldn't cover the distance in enough time to stop her from using the seal. "Very well, Hinata-sama," he replied with venom laced in his voice. "You would kill me to avenge your father's death?" What would that get you? Father has some respect for you, but thinks you are driven by your hatred. It is misplaced, Nizan, she said in an even tone. Up on the balcony, Naruto watched happily, as Hinata might be able to defuse the situation. If not, he would have to jump in. He knew that while she was stronger than before, she could still not match Niji blow for blow, just yet. Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked, and Kakashi looked at her in response. Why does she keep on calling him brother? They are cousins. Niji is the nephew of Hinata's father, Naruto answered, which caused both to look at him in surprise. How do you know? Sakura asked. Listen and you'll find out something, Naruto replied in an annoyed tone. Misplaced? How can it be misplaced? It is because of you that my father is dead, Niji angrily replied. I was 3 years old and Kumo wanted the Byakugan. They kidnapped me to try and get it. How is it my fault? She asked, as recognition began to form over his face. She then continued, I see you now understand a little. I was only a child when they tried to take me. My father killed the Kumo ambassador for his effort. This created an international incident, with Kumo feeling that they were the party wronged, because we had just signed a treaty with them and we killed their ambassador. It didn't matter that he tried to kidnap me, because he was extended immunity from crimes according to the agreement. How could he be given immunity for crimes? He asked. That was part of the agreement. If he were to commit a crime, he would be expelled from Konoha and then dealt with in Kumo. So if he wasn't caught instead of killed, he might have gotten away with me and been able to take me to Kumo when he was expelled. So you see, our fathers were in a lose-lose situation. Kumo demanded the body of the person who killed their ambassador. They knew that it was my father who killed him, so in a sense they would get what they wanted, the Byakugan, she said. She then sighed and continued, Your father knew this and chose to take my father's place, as the one to be sacrificed for the peace. I don't know all the details, but I'm sure he did it both protect both of us and my father. You're lying, Niji yelled. I have no reason to lie to you, Nizan, she replied. She then turned to the proctor and said, I forfeit. I know that I can't beat him and do not want to harm him. I would eventually lose in the end, but do not want to use either the seal or the fact that he is too troubled emotionally to win. I'm not ready to be Chunin. So you'll just run away? Niji demanded. If you wish to spar to decide who will win, then I agree to those terms, but I will not be a party to a person using this contest try and kill his own cousin, Hinata said with a harsh glare. So are you forfeiting or not? Aide asked. Am I, Nizan? Hinata asked. Niji's shoulders slumped and then shook his head. I promise I will not attempt to kill you, Hinata-sama, he said. All Juken strikes will be real other than those to vital areas. Is that agreeable? He asked. Hinata nodded and moved to a defensive stance. Shall we begin, Nizan? She asked happily. Niji nodded and moved to his own stance. Both nodded to each other and waited for Hayate to begin the match. Hayate dropped his arm and yelled, Begin! Niji immediately moved towards Hinata, who somersaulted backwards, away from Niji. Niji raised an eyebrow. This wasn't the Hinata from before. She would back away, but not reposition herself to a better vantage point. He shook himself out of his musing when he saw a group of Sunbon coming at him. He dodged and rolled to his right. He watched for the next move only to have to dodge again, as another group of Sunbon headed towards him. Again he dodged to his right. Hinata now had a pattern for Niji's dodging and prepared for it. She rolled an explosive note on a kunai and again threw a group of Senbon. Just as he began to do the roll, she threw the kunai and whispered, Sorry, Nizan. Niji dodged the last group of Senbon only to find himself staring at an activated explosive note attached to a kunai. He jumped back only to find himself thrown back from the resulting explosion. Anko and Naruto both yelled in glee at the explosion. They liked the boom more than Niji getting nearly hit by it. Hinata dashed through the resulting smoke cloud only to find a bloodied Niji ready for her. She skidded to a halt only to find his palm placed on her forehead and a smile on his face. You lose, Hinata-sama, he exclaimed. Hinata smiled and nodded. She placed her hands together and bowed to her cousin, who returned the gesture. Proctor, Niji Nizan has won, because the blow he would have done would have turned my brains to mush. He caught me by surprise, even with my using the explosive note, she explained. Hayate looked at the Hokage, who nodded and smiled warmly. I declare Hyuga Neji the winner, by a technical kill, he exclaimed. Naruto cheered on even after the match was called. You're really a baka, you know that Naruto, Sakura said in a derogatory tone. Naruto turned and scowled at the pink-haired girl. You know what? He asked in a happy tone. What? Sakura asked in return. I don't care, he sang out at Sakura. He then turned and looked directly at Hinata and yelled, Great job! You know he should really be quieter as a shinobi, Neji said with a smirk. Hinata smiled and walked with Neji to the medics, so they could examine him. Actually, I like him the way he is, she quietly said. Neji looked at Hinata with a confused look. What was that, Hinata-sama? Hinata blushed and then said, Nothing, Neji-Nizan, and please don't call me Sama. I have done nothing to deserve it other than being born, and that isn't enough to qualify me to be given that much respect. Neji shook his head and smiled. No, Hinata-sama. You do deserve respect and an apology from me. I held you to things that were never your fault to begin with. I deeply apologize for my weakness. You will become a great kunoichi, he said with a smile on his face. Hinata looked wistfully at Naruto and said, It was Naruto-kun who suggested that, should I go against you, that I should bring up your father and explain what happened from my point of view. He may not know everything, but he does have a way to people's hearts and an ability to show them the light. I was borrowing from Naruto-kun to help you, Nizan. Neji looked up at the screaming blonde and smirked. Well then tell him, thank you for helping to bring me from a dark place in life. Had you not done what you did, I would have tried to kill you, he sadly explained. Hinata smiled sadly and nodded. I know, but Naruto knew you could change for the better. He is strong and brave, she said with a far-off look in her eyes. You care for him a lot, don't you? He asked. Yes, I really do, she said, but didn't continue. Guy and Lee were yelling at how exciting the match was, since Neji approached. I'm proud of you, Neji, that you didn't let the whole main branch family squabble interfere with your match, Guy exclaimed. Oh, but it did, sensei. Oh, but it did, he said, but only trailed off. Guy looked at his student in surprise and awe, for he didn't understand what was going on, but wanted to make sure he wasn't going to try to kill Hinata. Naruto hugged Hinata and then said, That was great, you setting him up for the bomb. He then made a boom noise and Hinata giggled at his antics. He then continued to make exaggerated movements and said, He may have gotten you in the end, but it was really cool. Kurenai watched this with both mirth and reservation. She knew that Hinata liked Naruto, but didn't know if Naruto would be able to return the feelings, even though he had on several occasions come to their training grounds to pick up Hinata for extended practice above and beyond their normal training. The work they did together was phenomenal, but he was still a little childish and didn't understand relationships. She did watch the improvements that the boy had caused within Hinata, thus she was proud of both of them, and if this blossomed into a full-blown relationship, she wouldn't oppose it. She watched the boy happily talk about the previous match and was happy that Hinata was able to resolve the issues her cousin had with her with the help of Naruto. You're one special kid, Naruto. I hope you realize that, Hataki, Kurenai thought to herself. Naruto suddenly turned and grabbed Lee's arm and whispered to him, Be careful with this guy, Lee. He's really powerful and can use sand for both defense and offense. I know you can knock me around like a pinball, but you shouldn't let the sand touch you. Lee looked at Naruto in confusion and asked, Why is that, Naruto-kun? The sand can crush and kill people that get caught in it, Naruto explained. Lee smiled and gave a thumbs-up sign. No worries, Naruto-kun. I will beat him with the flames of youth, he exclaimed. Naruto grabbed his arm and didn't let go until he said, Just promise me that if you need to open the gates and can't beat him, you will forfeit. Lee saw that Naruto's eyes were serious and held apprehension in them. I will promise you that if I can't win, I will retire from the exams. Will that suffice, Naruto-kun? Lee asked with a subdued smile. Naruto nodded and hoped that Lee would give up before Gaara nearly killed him. He turned to Hinata and asked, Will you keep an eye on him for me? I need to try to talk to a certain fox so that a certain tanuki will get the point. Hinata nodded, as Naruto sat down and began to meditate. Kakashi put his book away and watched the match. Naruto walked the corridors that were familiar, yet they were foreign to him. He then heard whimpering, like that heard from a hurt animal. Naruto entered the room where the Kyuubi's cage was located. He saw the paper seal on the bars. He also noticed glowing kanji floating in front of the cage, just in front of the chains. So that is what the five-prong seal looks like, he thought to himself. He then looked at Kyuubi, who appeared to be sleeping in the cage, but also in pain. I'm not sure how to feel right now. The bastard gave me so many problems growing up and I didn't even know about him until only recently. I'll either have to get Erosenin or Gigi to remove the seal. If I get Jiraiya to do it, I should be able to get signed the Toad summoning contract. I can at times pull the Kyuubi's chakra to the surface, but other times it is difficult. In the vision, it took Erosenin throwing me off a cliff for me to get access to the chakra. I guess I could make the same deal with the fox, but earlier. That will make training with it easier too. Hold on, you Team Fox. I'll ease your pain soon enough, he thought. He took one last look at the whimpering fox before he left the room and back to the real world. Guy-sensei, I do not want to give up, but I will. For I can't continue, Lee yelled with his eyes half open. Gaara didn't look pleased. The boy had hurt him and now was going to quit. No mother will have your blood, he yelled from his sitting position and his arm extended. The sand was traveling towards Lee, who jumped away, but landed hard on the ground. Proctor, I give up, Lee said loud enough to be heard and then collapsed to the ground. The winner is, Hayate began to say, but was cut off by Gaara. No, he will die for hurting me, he yelled. Hayate and Guy both entered the sand and brushed it aside. The match is over, Gaara. If you continue, you will be disqualified, Hayate threatened. Gaara wore an angry look, but nodded. He then disappeared in a swirl of sand, only to reappear next to Baki. Both of his siblings gave Gaara some extra space. Naruto heard Kakashi apologize to Guy for his remarks about teaching Lee a forbidden jutsu. Naruto smiled at this. He also heard Kakashi ask Sakura to fill him in on details because he had an errand to run. Naruto watched the quick match between Dosu and Choji. He knew this was an unfair matchup. Dosu could use Choji's entire body to knock him out with a single sound attack, which is what happened. Naruto went down with the other winners of the preliminaries, except for Sasuke, who was currently in the hospital. The group drew lots and found out who they would be fighting in the finals. Naruto got to fight Neji and he was determined to change the match so the both might end up being Chunin, but it would take a lot of planning. Naruto was happy that Hinata was able to resolve the match without her getting hurt. He was actually surprised that she had gotten away without being hit at all. He did agree that a Juken strike to the brain would be fatal. Neji walked beside both Naruto and Hinata as they left the tower and headed back through the forest towards town. Chapter 5. Naruto knew that he could now change small things and not have to worry too much about major changes to his vision. He walked with Hinata to the hospital to check and see if Kakashi would turn him down flat. They both noticed Kurenai following them, as if to keep an eye on Naruto and Hinata. The pair entered the hospital. Naruto walked up to the desk nurse and asked respectfully, "Which room is Uchiha Sasuke in?" The nurse sneered at him and replied, "That information is private and we will not divulge that to anyone other than family." "Well, I'm his teammate, so that is sort of like family, isn't it?" he asked in an angry tone. Hinata inwardly chuckled at the exchange, but was worried at the course of the conversation would take when Kakashi arrived. Naruto continued to bicker with the nurse until Kakashi arrived and said, "Naruto, this is a hospital, so keep it down." "Kakashi-sensei, so how is the team doing?" Naruto asked with a slight smirk. Kakashi put his hand up to try and stall any questions Naruto might ask. "I know what you're going to ask, but no, I can't train you," he said. Naruto and Hinata looked at him with confusion written all over their faces. "What are you talking about, Kakashi-sensei? I just asked how Sasuke team is doing," Naruto said in an attempt to clarify his question. "I didn't ask you about training. That was going to be after you told me how the jerk was doing. But since you seem to want to get that over with, are you going to abandon me and not train me?" Kakashi's face turned slightly red, flush with anger. He had been ready to set Naruto up with Ebisu to work on his basics, so that Naruto's training was covered for the Chunin exams. While Sasuke is doing better and should be fine in a couple days. I'm glad you were concerned about your teammate. As for training, no, I'm not abandoning you. I've got a special tutor lined up for you to help you with your training, he explained. You're not abandoning me? So it isn't that closet pervert Ebisu, is it? Or any of those who don't like me, are they? Naruto asked. Closet pervert? Kakashi asked. Kakashi-senpai, is that how your students treat their betters? Ebisu asked while pushing up his glasses with his middle finger. What are you doing here, Arojounen? Naruto asked, with a huge smile, much to the anger and embarrassment of Ebisu. Kakashi, why are you not going to do any of Naruto's training? Kurenai asked, as she rounded a pole in the lobby of the hospital. Well, Sasuke has a harder opponent than Naruto does. For one, Kakashi replied. You know, Ebisu doesn't exactly like me, sort of like most of the rest of the village, Naruto said in a disheartened tone and then trailed off. Ebisu straightened up and pushed his glasses back up his nose. That isn't true, Naruto-kun. You have done wonders for Konohamaru-kun's attitude, he replied happily. So what will we be working on? Naruto asked. Chakra control, Ebisu replied happily. Naruto looked at the man with annoyance written across his face. Anything else? He asked in a flat tone. Not really, Kakashi-senpai said you needed work on the basics, mainly chakra control and a little bit of work on your taijutsu, Ebisu answered. Naruto sighed and looked at Kakashi and said, I get chakra control and I bet you teach team your Chidori. Kakashi had the decency to look surprised. As a matter of fact, I was going to teach him that jutsu along with speed and stamina work, Kakashi said, full of pride. So the first jutsu you teach will not be to either Sakura-chan or I, but to team who already has an arsenal of fire jutsu. Come on, name the jutsu that Sakura-chan knows, Naruto said in challenging voice. Kakashi put his finger up to his chin and thought about it. Well, she knows the Academy 3, he replied happily. Okay, now name my jutsu arsenal, Naruto said, again challenging his sensei. Naruto, do we have to do this? Kakashi asked only to be met with the stares of two fellow jounin, several chunin and a couple of genin. He sighed and said, Okay Naruto, you know 2 of the Academy jutsu and the Shadow Clone jutsu. How many jutsu does Sasuke know? Naruto asked. I'm not sure, several fire jutsu, maybe 4 or 5, Kakashi replied. So you're going to add another jutsu to his list, without even getting your other students up to similar levels? Naruto asked. He was enjoying this to some extent. That isn't the point, Naruto. Sasuke is like me, Kakashi angrily responded. What? So he's an arrogant, self-absorbed jerk, and a protege? Naruto asked. Well, yes, and he also has the same affinities that I have, Kakashi said in an angry tone. So, what affinities do Sakura-chan and I have? Naruto asked. Kakashi shook his head and said, I don't know. Naruto laughed, but the others listening in scowled. So did you ever think to check our affinities? He asked. Yes, I did. Why? Kakashi asked in return. When? Never mind, I can already tell you. I'm a wind type with 2 subtypes. I thought you would figure that out when I did what I did on the wave mission, Naruto said angrily. He turned to Ebisu and asked, So what type of chakra control exercises were you thinking of? Ebisu took a thinking pose and then said, Well, based on what Kakashi has told me, I was going to teach you water walking. Naruto interrupted and asked, An entire month to get that one? I got that one down, but could use some help getting an extra seal off of me that was placed on me when Sasuke got his hiki from. He was stopped by Kakashi placing his hand over Naruto's mouth and saying, We don't mention that name openly, Naruto, or that fact about Sasuke. Naruto forced the hand away from his mouth and said, I get it, but you didn't think to ask if I was attacked and injured during that little scuffle with you-know-who, or should I say, he who shall not be named? Kakashi shook his head and sighed. No, Naruto, I didn't, he replied in a tired voice. Naruto curled his index finger to have Kakashi put his head down, and whispered, So what would a 5-pronged seal do to the QB seal? Kakashi's eyes went wide, and he said worriedly, "We need to get you to the Hokage now." Kakashi put his arm around Naruto and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Kurenai did the same with Hinata, and then Ebisu left via the same means. All of them soon arrived in the Hokage's office to find the Hokage and Jiraiya both apparently waiting for them to arrive. "Welcome, Naruto-kun, Kakashi, Kurenai-chan, Ebisu, Kurenai, and Hinata-chan," Sarutobi said happily. "Ebisu, you can leave. I'll be taking over Naruto's training for the Chunin exams," Jiraiya said in an unhappy tone. Sarutobi nodded and Ebisu disappeared in a swirl of leaves. "Hinata and Kurenai-sensei can stay, because they both know about Kyuubi," Naruto explained. Kakashi looked at him in surprise and awe. "You told the Hyuga heir about Kyuubi?" he asked in astonishment. Naruto nodded and asked, "Why would I hold that back from my best friend and training partner after all of our training sessions? And the trust we have built up." Kakashi looked at Kurenai, who just nodded at this revelation. "So Gaki, how much do you know?" Jiraiya asked. "That's a vague question, sort of like, how deep is the ocean?" Naruto replied sarcastically. Jiraiya sighed, shook his head and said, jutsu and control exercises. "Well, I know substitution, transformation, and shadow clone jutsu. I'm also working on a jutsu that is pure chakra manipulation, but with this new seal on the fourths, I'm at about half normal control and strength for chakra," Naruto replied. "Okay, let's look at the seal," Jiraiya said. Naruto removed his jacket, shirt, and mesh shirt. He then channeled his chakra. The Kyuubi seal appeared, and then a second one appeared just outside of the first. An 8-pronged seal with a 5-point seal around that. "That isn't good," Jiraiya said, much to the confusion of some of the other present. "What's wrong with the 2 seals?" Kurenai asked. "You shouldn't mix even and odd-point seals together, unless you're asking for trouble," Naruto answered, much to everyone's surprise, other than Hinata. Jiraiya eyed Naruto and then asked, "You work with seals?" Naruto shook his head and said, "They confused me in the academy about seals, and sensei here didn't bother to give us any lessons on them. I've done a little research on my own, but not enough to know anything of value." The 3 adults glared at Kakashi, who said in his defense, "Hey, I was told they were up to speed on things from the academy." Naruto sighed and then said, "Look underneath the underneath, and what is done. Just get this seal off of me so we can go train, Jiraiya-sensei." Hinata giggled at Naruto's outburst, but not for the reasons that anyone but Naruto and her understood. "He is being so respectful. I wonder when he will start calling him Erosenin," she thought to herself. "Okay, brace yourself, here goes nothing." 5-pronged seal release, Jiraiya exclaimed, as he drove his glowing fingers into Naruto's stomach. Naruto doubled over even after he had prepared for the blow. "Feeling better, Naruto?" he asked. Naruto pulled out a kunai and began to spin it on his hand slowly. "Yes, much better. You know, I think I could make a jutsu off of this control exercise," he said to no one in particular. Jiraiya raised his right hand and a swirling blue ball of chakra appeared. "You mean like this?" he asked. Naruto nodded emphatically. "Yeah, that is what I envisioned it to look like. I've got rotation down but couldn't figure out how to make it into a ball," he explained. "This is a jutsu created by the 4th called the Rasengan. You're not ready for it, but from what I can tell you're more advanced in control than your sensei's reports say," Jiraiya said with a glare at Kakashi. Naruto looked at Kakashi and asked, "So does Team know how to walk on water?" Kakashi's shoulders slumped and he nodded. "So when were you going to teach us it?" Naruto asked. "Well, apparently I don't need to teach you it, because you were holding back from your teammates," Kakashi explained. "So much for being scum," Naruto said offhandedly. Kakashi glared at Naruto with his one eye and said, "The extra training without authorization was abandoning your comrades." "Really? I told you about it and how to explain that the Hokage knew about it. I found out about these exercises on my own, and to make matters worse, you didn't offer to train Sakura in water walking," Naruto said angrily, not noticing his dropping of the suffix. "Better yet, Didn't you tell us that we could also train on our own? Kakashi growled slightly. So then why didn't you help Sakura-chan? You have a crush on her, so why not give her some help? He asked, hoping that he had one-upped his student. She never asked for help, but I did ask you for help and now here we are. You worried about the curse seal on Sasuke, but didn't even think that I might also have been hurt. Some sensei, Naruto said derogatorily. The killing intent was rolling off Kakashi and directed towards Naruto. I'm your student, we as a team figured out your test, and now you tell me that Sasuke is more important, because you believe that he has a stronger opponent? Yes, I know that Gaara is like me, but I have Neji to go up against. Did you know he's the #1 rookie from last year? Luckily for me, he isn't an angry person anymore or I would have put up more of a fight about this. Go train the golden boy. I know he trains hard, but he has stalled lately. For a genius and someone who is supposed to have a keen eye, you're quite blind. I just hope your attempt at sealing the mark did the job, or we might have to stop him from going to Orochimaru, Naruto said sadly. Why would we have to worry about him going to Orochimaru? Kakashi asked. The promise of power and training from a Sannin, it would be intoxicating for a person like him who is bent only on revenge. He certainly isn't trying to rebuild the clan right now. Let's face it. When was the last time he looked at a girl in anything other than disgust? Naruto said, but then put up his hands and continued. I'm not saying he likes boys, but he certainly hasn't been chasing after girls. I know he could have his pick of almost any female our age in Konoha, because the only female I know that likes me in the village other than some of the adults is Hinata-chan here, Naruto said, while pointing at a blushing Hinata. It's true. All the girls in our graduating class, along with some of the girls in Nijinizen's class, are attracted to Sasuke-san. But he has shown no interest, Hinata explained. Naruto sighed and looked at Kakashi. He is so driven by his hatred that he's blind to those things around him. We need to figure out how to help him or contain him somehow, he said, as Kakashi's anger abated. So this isn't because you're jealous? Kakashi asked. Jealous? Jealous of an insensitive, arrogant jerk? Nope. I've been working on my own with Hinata-chan here and have been getting stronger. Our friends from Wave have been helping us out too. I know if I can work with Sasuke and Sakura, then I can work with just about anybody, Naruto replied in an annoyed tone. What's so bad about your teammates? Kakashi asked. Let's see. Sasuke is self-important and believes everyone is below his interest, but I will admit that up until Orochimaru gave him that hickey, he was improving and might have ended up being my friend. He was slowly moving away from his self-absorbed attitude, but that team messed with his mind. Now for Sakura, where should I start? Naruto asked rhetorically. He then sighed and continued. She beats me for fun or to let off some aggression, or even worse if I have a question she doesn't like. I'm sure she might get better, but have you ever reprimanded her for the assaults? Hinata, Naruto, Kurenai, Jiraiya, and Sarutobi glared at Kakashi. I thought she would get over it eventually, Kakashi said in a nonchalant tone. Did you know that she hit me a couple days before the exams for playing with the Hokage's grandson and his friends? She also hit him and nearly creating an international incident by chasing him into a Suna shinobi, Naruto said. I didn't hear about this. You say she hit my grandson? Sarutobi asked. I will admit Konohamaru wasn't being smart, but she pounded him pretty good for insulting her, but only after she had insulted and assaulted me. This was caused by Sasuke telling her that she was worse less than I was. Had the incident with Suna not happened, I would have reported her myself. She has some anger issues to work on, Naruto explained. Kakashi, what do you have to say for your team's behavior? Sarutobi asked. Kids will be kids, Kakashi said happily, while he shrugged his shoulders. So do I get Jiraiya-sama as a sensei? Naruto asked, since he totally ignored Kakashi's response. Sarutobi sighed and looked at Jiraiya, who shrugged his shoulders. So much for being my godfather, Naruto said in a dejected tone. Jiraiya, Kurenai, Sarutobi, and Kakashi all wore looks of surprise on their faces. Naruto inwardly smirked at the next stunt he was going to pull. He pointed at the picture of the fourth Hokage and asked, So why do I look like him? And why do I look like Tsunade-sama's little brother in everything but hair color? Hinata was doing her best to hold her laughter in, but allowed a small giggle to escape her lips. Naruto glanced over at her and smirked, since they both knew they were now going to blow the lid off of the future and try to change it. Sarutobi pinched the bridge of his nose in frustration. Naruto had sent him a message through Anko about Orochimaru being in the village. He later found out where the message was placed. This brought a blush to his face. Now the boy was making associations with his actual father and his former student Tsunade. Naruto-kun, why are asking these questions? He asked, actually wanting to know. Naruto smiled wide and motioned for the Hokage to come closer. When the Hokage had his ear by Naruto's mouth, he said, I know more things than people give me credit for. If it were known that the fourth had living relative, said relative would be hunted by Iwagakure and his enemies here in the village. If Tsunade had an actual relative who might possess the Mokutanjin, then Orochimaru or even worse the council would force the person into being breeding stock. Sarutobi's eyes went wide at what Naruto had just said. Naruto knew that he was the child of the fourth and that he might be related to Tsunade. He was either playing a dangerous game or knew more than he had led people to believe. One of the factors in his favor was him bringing a missing Kiri shinobi and a Hayutan user to the village. He did know that Naruto was training with Hinata, Haku, and Zabuza along with his regular training with his team. Kakashi squinted at Naruto with his eye and sighed. Naruto, you're the linchpin for our team and help keep it together, Kakashi said in admittance. Naruto closed his eyes and sighed. Kakashi-sensei, my job is to be your student. I've had to go to others to get training. Your pawning me off on Aroebisu is just another example of you doing this. I know that I can convince Jiraiya-sama to become my sensei with one jutsu, Naruto said boastfully. Jiraiya smiled broadly and said, oh yeah? Go ahead and use this great jutsu. Hinata blushed, but also shook her head. Kakashi looked at his student with intrigue. Sarutobi immediately ran to his chair and sat down. Kurenai glared at Naruto. Naruto made a hand seal and in a puff of smoke turned into a blonde girl of about 18 years, with a rather large chest. She was wearing a very skimpy orange bikini. She walked up to Jiraiya and lifted his chin up, winked and said in a seductive voice, oh, Jiraiya-sama, would you please teach Naruto-kun? Pretty please? Jiraiya nodded dumbly and reached out to touch the girl's breasts only to have his hand slapped gently. I'm not that type of girl, Jiraiya-sama, but I do thank you for agreeing to teach Naruto-kun, she said meekly. Jiraiya nodded recognition. His face suddenly changed to surprise, then the beautiful form was replaced by Naruto. Hey, I was enjoying that, he said in a hurt tone. Naruto smirked and replied, there will be more, but you can only look. I'm not the kind of girl who likes to touch and Hinata-chan would not be pleased if you were to touch the merchandise. Jiraiya sighed in defeat. Okay kid, I'll train you but only if you do your training in that form, he said excitedly. Naruto shook his head. No, it will be your reward for training me, he said grudgingly. He then turned to Kakashi and said, I know you copied Lee-san opening the gates with your Sharingan. So if I create a jutsu, will you steal it or are they safe from you and Sasuke? I have a student to train, Kakashi exclaimed and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Sarutobi sighed at the developments, but then said, don't blame him too much. He has had a broken heart for a long time. The loss of the Yondaime was the final straw that pushed him over the edge. He thinks that training Sasuke will repay his former teammate for the gift that he gave him. Naruto too sighed, but said, and what for his deceased sensei's son? Jiraiya and Sarutobi both noticed the lack of a surprised look on Hinata's face, but they did see the look of surprise fill Kurenai's face. So you both know, don't you? Jiraiya finally asked. Both teens nodded to the question. How long have you known this little tidbit of information? Jiraiya asked. Since the middle of the wave mission, and I told Hinata-chan about it before the Chunin exams. I also have some vital information for you, but it will cost you letting me sign the Toad summoning contract, Naruto explained. Jiraiya smirked and said, why not the monkey or demand the slug contract? I knew you're going to allow me to sign it anyways, so here's the information. Akatsuki is an organization that is after all of the bijou and their Jinchuriki. I know of most of the locations of the Jinchuriki. Gaara of Suna holds the Ichibi, the one-tailed tanuki. Ni Yujito of Kumo holds Nibi, the two-tailed cat. Sanbai is sitting peacefully in a lake right now since the former Mizukage died and it was released. Rushi of IWA holds Yanbi, the four-tailed ape. Han also from IWA holds Gobi, the five-tailed whale horse. Utakata of Mist holds Rokubi, or the six-tailed slug. Fu of Taki holds Shichibi, the seven-tailed beetle. Karabi also of Kumo holds Hachibi, the eight-tailed ox. And yours truly holds Kyubi, the nine-tailed fox. There are a few other demons sealed out there, but we don't need to get into them right now, Naruto said with a bit of mirth. How do you know all of this? Jinchuriki are usually well hidden in their villages, so that they can be used as secret weapons in times of war, Kurenai explained. Naruto smirked and said, let's just say that a fox inadvertently told me in my dreams. Sarutobi looked at Jiraiya and both nodded. There have been a few Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and only one was said to possess visions of the future, Sarutobi explained. As he walked to a shelf and pulled out an ancient-looking book, he skimmed through the pages until he found the page he was looking for. It was said that he became a sage that could sometimes predict the future, but when he tried to change something it would not always work. It is said that some things were set up by Kami herself and that even knowing the future couldn't prevent it from happening. So you got this information from a vision? Naruto nodded and said, I can't tell you everything, because you might change things so much I won't know what is going to happen. I'm taking a big risk now telling you guys what I know. What do you know now? Jiraiya asked. Naruto sighed and replied, well, if I don't change things, Jiji will die at the end of the Chunin exams at the hands of Orochimaru, but will seal his arms away with a forbidden jutsu. Jiraiya, my godfather, will die at the hands of Pain, a former student, but known to him as Nagato several years later. Even your sage mode will not save you from death. Bachan and I will be very depressed, but I become the new Toad Sage. In the end, I fight Uchiha Madara and another person. He turns away in slight pain at the thought that his former friend will eventually go down the road of destruction like he did in his vision. So you say that my old student Orochimaru will be present at the end of the Chunin exams? Sarutobi asked. Naruto nodded and said, he will be in the disguise of the Kazekage. He will have killed him a few weeks before. More than likely he is doing it right now. We should warn Suna, Kurenai said. Naruto shook his head. No, it's already too late and Gaara hates his father for trying to kill him, because in his eyes he is a failed experiment. I think I can reach Gaara and make him ally. And Suna is already bent on attacking us with Odo for things their daimyo did to their village. I figure the best we can do is try to lessen the damage and casualties now. We mustn't show that we're preparing for battle or they will be tipped off at this, he explained. And Kakashi thought you didn't have any potential, Kurenai said with much remorse. Naruto chuckled darkly. He will eventually change his mind. I also know my heritage, but I'm not willing to reveal it just yet, other than to Bachan, Naruto said happily. Who is this Bachan? Jiraiya asked. Your old teammate, she's my grandmother. I don't know who the grandfather was, but it would either be you or Dan, Naruto said with a chuckle. Sarutobi took his chin with his hand and began to think. So you say you're related to the Senju? He asked as he pondered out loud. Yep, as are the Uchiha, but that goes all the way back to the point of the Sage of the Six Realms, Naruto said. He was just a legend, Jiraiya said. Is the Rinnegan a legend? Naruto asked with a smirk. The Rinnegan? Kurenai repeated, but with a questioning look on her face. It's another jujitsu like the Byakugan or Sharingan. Who do you know has that jujitsu? Sarutobi asked. Nagato does, Jiraiya said sadly. You met him soon after you achieved the title of Sannin, while in aim during the war, Naruto explained. He then sighed and said, I'm afraid I've said too much. I've given Hinata-chan away to avoid being nearly killed by her cousin. Told you guys about Akatsuki, Orochimaru, and the invasion. I'm afraid that I will move things too far away from my vision and go into an area where I don't know what might happen and not be able to prevent people from being hurt. Oh, and send someone with Hayate tonight to watch after Kabuto. Otherwise he will be dead. But let the Suna Jounin escape or you can fake Hayate-san's death. Jiraiya smirked and bit his thumb, swiped the blood across his palm. Summoning jutsu, he exclaimed. A large toad with a scroll in its mouth appeared. The toad handed Jiraiya the scroll with its tongue. He took the scroll and unrolled it. Sign it on the last open space, Jiraiya ordered. Naruto nodded and bit his thumb. He then signed the scroll and re-rolled the scroll. The toad then took the scroll and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. So I do these hand seals and say, summoning jutsu, Naruto exclaimed. He slammed his hand on the desk. A web design appeared on the desk, followed by a puff of smoke and the appearance of an orange toad the size of a small cat. Yo! The frog exclaimed happily. Hey Gamakichi, Naruto said happily. How do you know my name, kid? Gamakichi asked with a confused look on his face. It came to me in a dream, Naruto said with a faraway look on his face. Hinata began to giggle, as did Kurenai. How did you get a toad on your first try? Jiraiya said with a stutter. I used my vision to gauge how much chakra was needed. I'm not quite ready to summon Gamabunta and he wouldn't fit in the office anyways, Naruto explained. Sarutobi chuckled at the antics of his adopted grandson and his student. So Naruto-kun, you mentioned Mokutan. Do you have those affinities needed for that bloodline? He asked. Naruto nodded. Yes, but they are suppressed by the Kyuubi whose affinity is wind. I need a lot of training to become proficient with those elements. From the vision I understand and can use wind jutsu. I just have a small arsenal of possible jutsu for that element. I haven't the control or the capacity right not to pull off the Rasengan. I know a couple of variants to it that will come when I can get it down. Right now I lack the control and pathways in my arms and hands to do a Rasengan properly, even with a clone to help with the last part, he explained. Would you like some training in the other elemental affinities? Jiraiya asked. That would be great. Could Hinata-chan also attend, since she is my training partner? Naruto asked excitedly. Jiraiya sighed, but nodded agreement. I agree to your conditions, but she will have to keep up or I will send her home. Do I make myself clear? He asked in a demanding tone. Hinata looked up at Kurenai in surprise, but then looked at Jiraiya and nodded excitedly. I will try not to let you down, Jiraiya-sama, she said respectfully. She will also not be dressed in any provocative clothing. As much as I hate to show you the sexy jutsu, that will be the only female you will get to look at between the two of us who will be scantily clad. I will not have you do anything lecherous to my friend, Naruto said in an authoritative voice. Jiraiya, Kurenai, and Sarutobi were surprised by Naruto's proclamation. Jiraiya smiled warmly and nodded. She's too young for me anyways. I also don't want either Hayashi or Kurenai-san here to have a reason to get angry with me. Your training will start tomorrow, he said happily. At the waterfall with the bathing spot just beyond the shrubs. So you can do your research when we are busy training? Naruto asked with a slight scowl. Jiraiya nodded and said, That will work. How do you know of such a spot, Naruto? Kurenai asked. Remember, I had a vision, and that is the spot where Jiraiya-san taught me how to do the summoning jutsu. He likes to peek at women. The more scantily clad the better. We all know he's a pervert. Naruto said, only to correct himself. I mean, super pervert. Sorry for not getting that correct, Jiraiya-sensei. Or more accurately, Ero-senninda. Kurenai nodded, but continued to scowl at Jiraiya. Hinata smiled at Naruto, finally letting out his favorite sensei's nickname. Jiraiya scowled at Naruto, but didn't feel too put out by Naruto's nickname. So long as he didn't use it that often, he might not mind. Naruto and Hinata left the office and headed towards the Hyuga estate. Jiraiya scowled, but Kurenai smiled warmly at the two young shinobi. You know she might get in the way of my training, Jiraiya said darkly. She might surprise you, Jiraiya-sama, Kurenai replied in an angry tone. She will do fine. I would check her affinity and you can progress from there. We have so few wind users in the village that I don't know who other than my son to train Naruto-kun in that element. But his having both water and earth affinities is helpful though. You train him in those affinities, Sarutobi said. Do you think you gave them too much information, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. Naruto shrugged and replied, I don't know. I just don't want Gigi to die. That is, if I can help it. The two were allowed into the Hyuga compound, but noticed a person had followed them to the compound. "Do you think he heard us?" Naruto asked. "He didn't appear to have heard anything while we talked, but we did keep it quiet," Hinata replied. Hayashi wore a smile at the approaching teens and asked, "Welcome back, Naruto-kun. What brings you here today?" Naruto bowed to Hayashi, who returned the gesture. "Hayashi-dano, I have garnered training from the Sannin Jiraiya, and Hinata-chan is invited to join us in the training. We came to ask your permission for her to join the training. I have also laid down the ground rules for Jiraiya and his perverted ways, where Hinata-chan is concerned. He will be able to look at other females who are scantily clad, but Hinata-chan will not have to reveal anything," Naruto explained. Hayashi nodded and replied, "I'm glad you're looking after the interests of my daughter. I feel that this arrangement is most beneficial, so I agree to allow her to train with you under the Sannin. Come join us for lunch." Naruto and Hinata entered the dining area to find Hanabi, Niji, and an unknown Hyuga female sitting at the table. The conversation was light, and they found out that Hayashi had given Niji the scroll from his father to read. He appeared much happier now than he was before, after having read the scroll. Chapter 6. The invasion begins. Naruto woke up early and changed into his regular jumpsuit and created a clone. He then changed into a black outfit and sent the clone outside in the direction of the training grounds. Naruto grabbed some toast with jam and then followed the clone to find a familiar person following his clone. He created another clone to keep watch on the stalker and then headed to the Hyuga compound. He arrived quickly enough and was let in with little fanfare. He greeted Hayashi and Hanabi, while he waited for Hinata. Hanabi raised an eyebrow to the blonde and asked, "Why did you get rid of that atrocious orange jumpsuit?" Naruto just shrugged and said, "I have to change things up, especially if I don't want to be noticed." Hanabi's face lit up like she had just figured out the meaning to the universe. She mouthed the word "oh" as she put her hands to her cheeks. A voice interrupted the teasing. "Naruto-kun, please don't tease my sister. She might get the idea that you might like her and develop a crush on you," Hinata said, only to have Hanabi blush profusely at this comment. Hinata noticed this and said in an exasperated tone, "Hanabi! He's my boyfriend and you can't have him." Naruto turned bright red, as he noticed Hayashi raise an eyebrow and appeared to be chuckling lightly. Naruto shook his head and grabbed Hinata's hand. "By Hanabi Amudo, Hayashi-sama, will more than likely be back later this evening. I know that Ero Sennin will work us to the bone," he explained, as they headed away from the compound. Several days later, Naruto and Hinata sat in meditative poses while they appeared to be fighting the urge to hit a certain pervert who was giggling like a maniac. "Ero Sennin, instead of making all that noise, you could just write your ideas down and laugh about them later," Naruto said in a very angry tone. "Shut up, brat. You have no idea what a genius I am," Jiraiya replied in a sarcastic tone, until he felt the Kyuubi's chakra welling up from within Naruto. Hinata's eyes opened and she looked at Naruto. What she saw surprised her. His features were more pronounced, his hair was wilder, his fingernails had become claws, his whisker marks were both larger and darker, and she noticed his canine teeth elongating to the point that they were visible, since they poked out between his lips. "Are you all right, Naruto-kun?" she asked in a worried tone. Naruto didn't open his eyes, but nodded. "I'm fine, Hinata-chan. The pervert is just getting me a little angry. The fox isn't quite awake yet, but I'm able to get some of its chakra to use right now. I figure that if I can keep up the use of this chakra, I can help my system become more accustomed to it. At this level, there aren't any ill side effects. I figure I'm at about a quarter tail worth of chakra and should be fully enveloped in the red Kyuubi chakra," he explained. Hinata nodded, but she then gasped when he opened his eyes. Gone were the loving blue eyes. They were replaced by red irises with slit-like pupils. Naruto grinned, and this intensified the feral look with his elongated canines. "So do you like it?" Naruto asked. Hinata shook her head and then nodded. Naruto chuckled at her confusion. Naruto pricked his thumb and did several hand seals and said, "Summoning Jutsu." A large cloud of smoke appeared, and as the smoke slowly dissipated, it revealed a large toad, about the size of a small hill. Naruto eyed the toad and shook his head. It was light and dark green and had two swords on his back. Jiraiya turned and whistled at the huge toad. "Nice to see you, Gamahiro," he said happily. "Did this child summon me?" Gamahiro asked. Naruto nodded and replied wearily, "Yes, I did, but I was hoping to summon Boss Toad." "You're nearly there, kid. You just need more chakra and possibly some more control," Jiraiya explained. "If there is nothing then you need of me, then I shall return," Gamahiro said, before he disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Naruto slumped over and sighed. Hinata was at his side. "Naruto-kun?" she asked in a worried tone. Naruto chuckled. "I'm fine, just a little tired. That's all," he said in his defense. "The Kyuubi chakra is intense and malevolent," Hinata explained. "What would you expect from the strongest of the 9 animal spirits?" Jiraiya asked. "It's not that. It's just using that chakra is tiring and I feel a little drained afterwards. I know from the vision that this is normal, but I figured I had gathered enough chakra to do it. I know later on I can gather natural chakra, but I don't want to gamble and become a statue, because I don't have the control to use it," Naruto explained. "You would have to use either Ma or Pa to do that," Jiraiya said in a surprised tone. "Nope, won't work. Kyuubi won't allow for it, for some odd reason. Guess that is one of the pitfalls of being a Jinchuriki," Naruto said in a too happy of a tone to be anything other than him being sarcastic. "So have you talked to Kyuubi?" Jiraiya asked. Naruto shook his head and said, "No, not yet. I keep visiting the cage and the furball is still asleep. I'm hoping today it might wake up. Heck, there's no telling whether it is a boy or a girl." Jiraiya chuckled and said, "It's a manifestation of chakra, a creature unlike any other. My guess is that it doesn't have a sex per se, or it might even be a hermaphrodite." Naruto returned to his meditative pose and entered his mindscape. He traveled the familiar corridors and entered the chamber with the seal. He heard a low chuckle and grinned. "So you're finally awake, you damn fox," he yelled at the cage. A set of red glowing eyes appeared and then a large set of teeth appeared. The fox chuckled lowly and then squinted its eyes. "So my container has finally chosen to visit me," the fox said in a booming voice. Naruto shook his head and replied, "Nope, I've been visiting you off and on for several months. You were either asleep or in pain. I hope you appreciate me getting that seal removed that was hurting you." "I can never be hurt," the fox said arrogantly. "Keep your pride, I need to know a few things and want more access to your chakra. Consider it rent for living in my body," Naruto explained. The fox lowered its head and growled at Naruto, but not in an apparent malicious way. "I'm impressed that you don't cower before me. I shall give you the power you seek and allow you to ask your questions," the fox said, almost laughing. Naruto smiled. "Thanks, furball. So what do you know about Madara Uchiha?" he asked. The area around Naruto began to swirl with both power and wind. Both Jiraiya and Hinata had to shield themselves from the wind blowing small twigs and other debris at them. Naruto opened his eyes, bit his thumb and proceeded to do several hand seals, while he exclaimed, "Summoning Jutsu!" A cloud engulfed the area and a shadow blocked out the sun. Did he actually do it? Jiraiya asked himself, as he tried to determine what had actually been summoned. "Jiraiya, why have you summoned me, you lecherous old coot?" Gamabunta yelled. "Hey boss man," Naruto yelled. "Eh? Who are you and why are you on top of me?" Bunta asked. Naruto chuckled and replied happily, "I summoned you so that I could become your subordinate. I'm sure your son and the others told you about this." "Yes, they did mention that someone would summon me soon." "So you're the brat," Gamabunta said in a derogatory tone. Naruto chuckled and said, "We can drink over it in a few years. Heck, if you want me to ride on your head for the day, I could do that too." Gamabunta smiled and lowered himself closer to the ground. Jiraiya grabbed Hinata and ran through the bushes towards the waterfall. "Everyone, clear the area," he yelled, as the frightened women near the waterfall began to run away from the huge toad. "So you think you can hold on to me?" Gamabunta asked, as he jumped up into the air. Naruto had somewhat prepared for this to happen, so he lay down on Gamabunta's nose and attached himself with chakra. "This is going to be a wild ride for sure," he thought to himself. 8 hours later Naruto was barely conscious, but still hanging onto Gamabunta. So you give up? Naruto asked with a slur in his speech. No, but you've proved your point, Uzumaki Naruto. I will allow you to be my subordinate, Bunta admitted. Naruto jumped off of Gamabunta's nose, but collapsed in a heap when he landed. You should be more careful, kid. Since I have taken you in, you may now summon us any time you need our assistance, Gamabunta said happily and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Well, while you were off gallivanting with Bunta, I've taught Hinata here how to access her water affinity, since you two chased off all the pretty girls, Jiraiya said in a whiny tone, until he felt a sharp pain in his arm. He looked down to see an angry Hinata. So you think that I'm not pretty? She asked angrily. Jiraiya put up his other hand in a submissive gesture and said, No, it's just that you're too young for me and Naruto. Forbid me to look at you in that way. Hinata glared at the Sannin, but moved to help Naruto recover after using so much chakra and also so much of the Kyuubi's chakra. It took a week for Naruto begin to work with his earth affinity, and then another week to actually get a single jutsu to work. Hinata, in the meanwhile, was able to master 2 water-based jutsu. Naruto was also given a temporary room in the Hyuga compound to help speed up Hinata and his meetings before training. The elders got wind of this, but since they were being trained by a Sannin, they kept their mouths shut about it. The last week Naruto and Hinata began to work on seals with Jiraiya. Naruto had hoped that he would get a chance to work with water jutsu, but also determined that it would take too much work to master a third element in such a short amount of time. While Toad Taijutsu suited Naruto, it didn't go over well with Hinata and her Juken training. Naruto and Jiraiya worked with her on her Guardian 8 trigrams, 64 palms jutsu. Naruto's clones could attest to how powerful this jutsu actually was. Sarutobi informed Naruto that Hay-8 had died a day before the beginning of the third portion of the exams. Jiraiya told Sarutobi how the training had gone, but also kept some of it for a surprise. Naruto also played along and sought out Gaara. He told him to keep himself under control. Gaara ignored Naruto until he mentioned that they were alike and had monsters in them. Shikamaru was present at the time, but appeared more worried about Gaara than what Naruto was talking about. Guy finally broke up the gathering and sent Gaara back to his hotel. Naruto took Hinata to the training grounds for a nostalgic kiss before his match. He told her again how they had met in this very same spot and what they discussed. He wrapped her in a hug and kissed her gently again. He then said, I want you to be careful and keep Kiba close. Now before you say that I'm insulting your skills. I'm not. You're a strong kunoichi and the woman that I love. I just want you safe, and there is going to be so much going on that I'm worried you might get hurt or even die. In my vision, you were at the hospital at the time of the attack. So if you feel a genjutsu, play along like you're falling under it, but don't allow yourself to actually be captured by it. I'm sure that we can help out with the others. I'm just worried about Gaara and if I will be able to stop him in time. I wonder if Sasuke team will be late again, like in your vision, Hinata said in a mildly derogatory tone. Naruto chuckled and released Hinata. More than likely with that sensei of mine, he said in with quite a bit of mirth. Kiba is almost here. Keep an eye on him. He's our friend and we need to keep our friends safe. Hinata nodded as Kiba and Akamaru entered the training grounds. Hey Naruto, Hinata, you guys ready to go to the stadium? Both of the other teens nodded as the 4 headed towards the stadium. They met up with Konohamaru. Naruto then told him to go to school and that he would fill him in about the tournament later. Konohamaru agreed readily and went off to school. Naruto left Kiba and Hinata so that they could find their seats while he entered the main arena. Naruto noticed the smirk on Niji's face and walked up beside him. So you want to take our time and show off some of our hard work, or do you want to make it quick? Naruto whispered to Niji. Niji's smirk threatened to become an actual smile. I think we should draw it out, seeing as how that Uchiha punk isn't here right now, Niji replied quietly. Naruto smiled widely and winked at Niji. He then looked at Gunma and saw him nod to him before he said, So we made it to the big time, right? Gunma nodded and said, Look up and see that everyone here is here to see you. All the genin looked up into the crowd and the audience began to cheer. Naruto watched the Hokage box carefully and then noticed the glare that Gaara was giving the Kazekage. The Hokage stood up and said loudly, "Thank you all for coming to the Hidden Leafs Chunin exams. We will start the main tournament matches between the 8 participants who made it through the preliminaries. Please watch and enjoy it until the end." He then sat down and appeared to have a discussion with the Kazekage. Gamma then said, "There is something I'd like to tell you before the matches begin. Please look at this." He held up a new sheet that had Dosu's name removed, but still had all the other participants' names in their former order. There have been some minor changes to the tournament, so check again to see who you're fighting. Naruto raised his arm and asked, "Sasuke isn't here yet. What are you going to do?" Gamma looked at Naruto with an annoyed look on his face and said, "If he doesn't appear by the time of his match, he will forfeit." Naruto growled and said under his breath, "No way they'll let that happen. He'll just be late like Kakashi-sensei. I swear he'd be late to his own funeral." Gamma smirked at the jab at Kakashi, but then proceeded to explain the rules. "Alright guys, this is your final test. The arena is different, but the rules are the same as in the prelims. There are none. You fight until one of you dies or acknowledges defeat, but if I determine that the fight is over, I'll step in and stop it. You got that?" Everyone nodded. As Gamma said, "I need Hyuga Neji and Uzumaki Naruto to remain. All the others please proceed to the observation platform above the arena floor." The others filed out of the arena and up the stairs to the platform to observe the coming battle. Gamma turned to Naruto and Neji. He smiled and said, "I want a good fight between the two of you." He watched them both nod and take their respective taijutsu positions. Gamma lowered his hand, jumped back and said, "Begin!" Naruto's face turned from just grinning to a maniacal grin. He then charged Neji. Neji activated his Byakugan and prepared for the attack. To his surprise, Naruto's speed was increasing as he covered the 20 yards between them. He began to establish the timing of his first strike and waited the few seconds left before he could strike. Naruto saw Neji preparing for his charge and at the last minute twisted to the right slightly, just being missed by Neji's strike with his right arm. Naruto pulled his arm up and attempted to hit Neji in the face, only to find his hand both blocked and hurting, thanks to Neji's left hand. Naruto jumped back to avoid a swinging strike by Neji. Shaking the numbness out of his right hand, he shook his head and said, "Nice block, Neji. As usual, your speed is amazing." Naruto's face turned serious and he continued, "But that won't help as much as you would like." "We shall see, Uzumaki, we shall see," Neji said, while motioning for Naruto to attack again. His expression turned from confidence to surprise when he saw a strand of red chakra traveling from Naruto's core to the injured hand. What is going on? The hand for all intents and purposes is no longer usable, but that red chakra is opening the chakra point at his wrist. He thought to himself as he watched Naruto shake his hand again, able to now flex his hand normally. "I see you have some tricks in you yet. We shall put them to the test, Uzumaki," he said boastfully. "You know that hurts?" Naruto asked. He then crossed his fingers and created more than a dozen shadow clones. "Hey Neji, let's play a game. Find the real Naruto." Neji noticed one sliding into the ground and charged that one. He struck it in the upper chest. "Trying to hide yourself, it is an admirable tactic, but it won't work," he exclaimed. Naruto began to cough up some blood, but then smiled and said, "You guessed wrong." With that, Naruto disappeared in a cloud of smoke, leaving a hole in the ground. "You want another turn?" Another Naruto asked. "Indeed," Neji said with a smirk. He slowly walked around to the individual Narutos. He noted the placement of each and kept his guard up the whole time. "This is very unusual. All of your clones are solid and have chakra coils. If I had the time to analyze them more, I would be able to discern which would be the real you, but I cannot at this moment tell which of them is the real you, so I'm left to just guess." "What about you too?" he exclaimed, as he struck out and hit 2 of the Narutos. Both disappeared in clouds of smoke. "Guess you guessed wrong. My turn," one of the Narutos exclaimed. 3 charged Neji and found that 2 hit him while the other 2 were taken out by chakra strikes to the chest. "Got you," Neji exclaimed. He ran through the group of clones to one who appeared to be cowering. "I knew you wouldn't attack yourself," Neji explained, as he slammed a palm into Naruto's right chest. Naruto slid back and stood up and began to cough up blood. but also smirked at Niji. That can't be him, Niji thought, but then jumped back as a Naruto came out of the ground and nearly was able to grab onto his ankles. Naruto fully emerged from the ground and looked very disappointed. Dang it, I almost had you there. Guess we have to go on? Naruto exclaimed, as the clone coughing up blood disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Niji skidded to a halt and then said, so you know some earth-style jutsu. That will not help you, Uzumaki. He then noticed Naruto taking a deep breath and going through several hand seals. Wind style, drilling pressure bullet, Naruto exclaimed, as he breathed out a condensed bullet of air at Niji. Niji looked at this wide-eyed. He could see the bullet better than most because of his Byakugan, but was only able to dodge it by the barest of margins. His left arm was grazed and it tore his shirt sleeve from his shirt. He winced from the pain of the glancing blow. Very good, Uzumaki. I bet you can't do that again, Niji said boastfully. To his surprise and that of the crowd, Naruto had just finished the hand seals and sent a second bullet at Niji. Niji, in his arrogance, didn't think that Naruto would continue the attack on him, but he did. Niji released a burst of chakra and began to spin and exclaimed, "Rotation!" A semicircle of chakra covered the spinning genin. The jutsu attack slammed into the chakra shield and exploded. Niji found himself landing on his feet, but was shaken. He pulled out a kunai and threw it at the closest cluster of Naruto clones and watched it explode, taking about 6 of them with it. Ah, no fair. You cheated, Naruto exclaimed in a sarcastic manner. All's fair in war, Niji exclaimed. Naruto replied in a childish tone. He then continued. It's said that, all's fair in love and war, so nah. Naruto stuck his tongue out at Niji. And this isn't love, thank Kami? Naruto exclaimed, while both Niji and Gama nodded agreement. Naruto rushed through several hand seal and moved his hand from his side in an upwards motion, while he yelled, "Wind style! Great breakthrough!" Niji went wide-eyed and again waited for the attack to come and then used another rotation to protect himself from the attack. When he stopped spinning, he looked at Naruto and opened his mouth to speak, but was dragged down into the ground so that only his head was above ground. Earth style, inner decapitation, Naruto said in a calm voice. He then bent down and looked Niji in the eyes and said, "Sorry, did I interrupt you wanting to say something?" Niji frowned and nodded. "I was going to concede the battle to you. If you can use that jutsu, then there would be no way for me to defeat you. Using it as a distraction is even more of a surprise," Niji explained. He then turned his head to the proctor. "I give up. I was about to, but didn't have a chance, so I concede to Uzumaki Naruto." Gama nodded and then said, "Winner Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto sighed relief and pulled Niji from the ground. Niji noticed that Naruto was sweating and breathing heavily, but was trying to hide the fact. You would have to be a Hyuga or close to Naruto to have noticed this. He smirked at Naruto, waving to the applause from the crowd. He also noticed the gleam in Naruto's eyes when they came upon his cousin. "Thanks to the two of you, my eyes have been opened. Thank you, Hinata-sama and Naruto-san," he thought to himself. Naruto watched in annoyance as Sasuke's match was postponed. He then chuckled and laughed at Kankuro when he forfeited. Kankuro growled at the blonde, but said nothing. Naruto played with Shikamaru and knocked him into the arena, much to his annoyance. Naruto then walked over to Shino and said quietly, "Put a female bug on doll boy and keep an eye on him and his sister. I'll watch the walking sandbag." Shino pushed his glasses up on his face and asked, without turning to Naruto, "Why should I do that?" Naruto continued to look down at the arena. Shikamaru appeared to be losing, but Naruto was sure he would win and then forfeit. "I have a feeling that all hell's going to break loose during team's match, and I think that the sand guys are going to be trouble," he replied quietly. "What makes you think that?" Shino asked pointedly. "That Kankuro guy, he seemed to give up too easily. I'm sure he's trying to keep the armament of his puppets hidden, and that would mean that he is going to fight against us instead of you," Naruto said in a worried tone. "So you think our allies from Sand are going to attack?" Shino asked. "Come on, Shika. You can beat her," Naruto yelled down into the arena, but then quietly said to Shino, "That would be my impression. See how tightly wound the ANBU are around the arena? and that's nothing compared to the old man. Shino looked up at the Hokage and noticed that he had fake smile on his face, along with 2 Jounin guards. That is odd that the Hokage would have 2 guards at an event like this. My insects also tell me that there are 3 more in the area of the Hokage's box. He must not trust the Kazekage, he thought to himself. Very well, Naruto-san, I will do as you ask. Naruto looked down and adjusted the zipper on his jacket. He saw a small beetle moving quickly across the floor towards Kankuro. He smiled inwardly. Also be careful with that one. He uses poisons and I'm not sure if you and your friends can handle poison gases yet. Naruto said again in a worried tone. Thank you for your concern for me and my allies. Naruto-san, you have become a most intriguing ally. I must ask you about something if I may. Shino asked with an implied desire for an answer. Sure, go ahead and ask. I'm not sure that you'll like the answer, but go ahead. Hey Shikamaru, come on. Can't you get out there and fight her? Naruto yelled down into the arena, but then chuckled at how he knew Shikamaru was going to be angry with him. You are a dichotomy, Uzumaki Naruto, Shino said in a monotone voice. Naruto smiled and said proudly, I know, isn't it great? Naruto then put his hand on Shino's sleeve and said happily, I bet he gets her here. There is no way he'll beat my sister, since she's gotten his range figured out, Kankuro proudly boasted. I'll bet being the other slave for a day that he will get her, but then forfeit, Naruto said as he turned to the puppet user. Easy. Bet, and I won't have to worry since you're going to be dead after today, Kankuro thought to himself. He then said, Sure, you're on. Kankuro and Shino, along with the crowd, watch in amazement as Shikamaru captured Temari in his shadow possession jutsu. They were even more surprised when Shikamaru promptly forfeited to Temari, complaining of lack of chakra to continue. Shino shook his head in amazement, while Kankuro just stood there gaping at how he had lost a bet to a blonde shrimp. Naruto jumped down to the arena floor and put a hand on Shikamaru's should. I knew you were going to do that. Heck, I bet Choji even knew it too. So, you ready for the next fight? Shikamaru asked with a smirk. Sure, but I bet that team will make it here in about 15 minutes, and even then he will make it just in time. I really hate that my sensei likes to be late, and even worse, he's turning team into someone like him. Kami, help us all, Naruto said in a teasing tone. Shikamaru and Genma both chuckled at the blonde's joke. After Genma announced that they would wait another 10 minutes for Sasuke to show up before he was disqualified, Naruto threw a glance at Gaara, who seemed to be accepting the situation without much of a problem. He also noticed Shino nod to him, telling him that he had also planted a bug on Temari. Naruto began to tap his foot and said, You know he's going to get here and make it showy. Bet he leaves about 5 to 10 seconds to spare. Genma looked at the blonde like he was crazy, but Shikamaru just laughed at the outburst. Genma looked at his watch and right with 7 seconds to spare, he felt a burst of chakra hitting the area, along with a swirl of leaves. He and Naruto both smirked while nodding to each other. Shikamaru and the crowd looked on in awe. Guess you were right. He turned to his new arrivals and watched as the leaves settled to the ground. Kakashi spoke up and said, Sorry we're late. Genma smiled at the pair and asked, Your name? Sasuke put on a super scowl and replied, Uchiha Sasuke. And you call me an attention hound. You're getting as bad as sensei. Next you'll tell us that a black cat crossed your path and you had to go the long way, Naruto said as a jibe at Kakashi. You're an idiot, Sasuke replied happily. He then asked, So did you win your fight? Naruto smiled wide and replied, You know it, no thanks to our lazy sensei. Naruto then scowled at Kakashi. Kakashi put up a hand to defend himself and said, Hey, you said that you were fine with me working with Sasuke. He then turned to Genma, scratched the back of his neck and asked nervously, Well, we did show up all flashy and the like, but was Sasuke disqualified? Genma sighed and said, Geez, your tardiness must be contagious. Kakashi sighed and said, See Sasuke, you're late, so what is the verdict? Genma chuckled and replied, Don't worry. His match was pushed till the end, and so he wasn't disqualified. And the luck of the Uchiha stands. Kiss their ass and they get what they want. Naruto said in a derogatory tone. Sasuke growled, but turned to glare at Gaara up in the observation platform. Naruto then said, "Don't let him get a hold of your balls or two things will happen." Sasuke looked quizzically at Naruto and then asked, "What are those?" Naruto put up on finger and said, "First, you couldn't rebuild your clan, and second, you'd lose all your fangirls. Okay, the second may not be so bad for you, but you'd also be useless in a fight after that." Sasuke actually smirked at Naruto's joke. The crowd began to cheer for Sasuke. Naruto put a hand on Shikamaru and began to walk towards the stairs to the observation platform. Got to keep my cool or Shikamaru will die at the hands of Gaara, Naruto thought to himself, as they came to the top of the stairs and saw a shinobi from the hidden grass village being swallowed up by sand. Gaara walked past the broken bodies of the dead shinobi. He looked at Naruto with no emotion on his face. Naruto splashed a little Kyuubi chakra through his system just enough to let Gaara know that he was also a Jinchuriki. Gaara's eyes showed surprise at Naruto's eyes. He continued on past the two Konoha shinobi. Shikamaru collapsed on the stairs in a sitting position. Naruto sat down next to Shikamaru and began to speak in a haunting tone. "Don't take this the wrong way, Shika, but if he had not been interrupted by those guys, we would have had a real problem." Shikamaru looked at Naruto like he was crazy and said, "Yeah, we would be dead." Naruto sighed and said, "This doesn't go beyond this hallway." Naruto waited for Shikamaru to nod, and then he continued, "Gaara is the Jinchuriki of Shikaku the Ichibi. I would of course be injured in a fight against him, but he would be hard-pressed to kill me, because I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi." Shikamaru looked at Naruto and then a light went off in his head. "So that's it. Well, that does explain why most everyone doesn't like you, but it would be too troublesome for me to begin hating you for something that you had no control over." Naruto smiled warmly at his friend and replied, "Thanks, Shikamaru. Other than one other, it feels good to know that some people don't judge me on what is sealed in me." Shikamaru chuckled at Naruto's admission and said, "So how is it going with Hinata?" Naruto slapped his fist in his hand and exclaimed, "Damn! How did you know?" "I didn't until now, but I had a feeling that it was the case," Shikamaru admitted. "Guess you are the smartest one of our generation," Naruto said jokingly. He then continued, "I think we should warn my Tardy-sensei about Gaara and what Sasuke is up against. Also be on your guard. Something doesn't seem right." "You mean like that puppet guy giving up before the fight?" "Yeah, that bothered me too." "What are you thinking, Naruto?" Shikamaru asked, as the pair headed to the stands to find Kakashi. Everyone was focused on the match between Gaara and Sasuke that they didn't notice Naruto and Shikamaru enter the stands behind Kakashi. "So he went ultimate defense? You know Sasuke-chan using Bushibrow's taijutsu isn't enough to beat Gaara," Naruto said to anyone who would listen. "Naruto," Sakura said angrily. "Chill out, Sakura-chan. He stole Bushibrow's taijutsu, but I'll bet that Kakashi Team Sensei gave him more than just taijutsu to work with, even if he lacks the stamina to use the taijutsu effectively," Naruto said while cupping his chin in his hand. "Naruto-kun," Lee said sadly, but with a smile on his face. "You know from his fight with Bushibrow that he can use that sand like another limb. There is a chance that Gaara will kill Team. I know you spent the whole month with Team and taught him your special jutsu, but it won't be enough to do more than injure him," Naruto explained. Suddenly there was a screeching sound like a flock of birds. "You'd be surprised what he can do with a little encouragement," Kakashi said under his breath. Guy turned to Kakashi and asked angrily, "No way, is that?" Kakashi looked down at the arena and said, "The reason I trained Sasuke is because he's the same type as me." "So that is the reason you trained him in taijutsu so you could also work on increasing his speed," Guy explained. "Yup," Kakashi happily replied. "And you taught him Chidori and assassination jutsu on the Kazekage's son no less. That will make for great international relations," Naruto said in a sarcastic tone. "How do you know about the Chidori, Naruto?" Kakashi asked. "You're the most well-known shinobi in the Leaf and my supposed sensei. Why would you not think that I would do some investigating of you?" Naruto asked. Kakashi shrugged and said, "I guess that explains your knowledge to some extent. This technique is based on a simple stab, but there is more to it. It is Kakashi's sole original technique. It's a technique specifically made for assassinations. The speed of the stab and the enormous amount of chakra that used, also because the chakra is concentrated in the hand along with the speed of the user, all you hear is the chirp it produces like the sound of 1,000 birds running towards you. And that is the reason it is called the Chidori, Guy explained. Naruto nodded, but then shook his head, as he looked on to see Sasuke's left arm penetrate the sphere of sand protecting Gaara. Oh well, at least he might get away. Poor Gaara is going to feel that in the morning, Naruto thought to himself. Chidori, also known as lightning edge or Raikiri, a technique name give when Kakashi cut a lightning bolt with said technique, Guy explained. He sighed and then continued. Its true name is Chidori. It is known for its stabbing speed that pushes the limits of the human body, and the huge amount of chakra that is focused in that single arm becomes the blade of a sword that can cut through anything. But what a truly ridiculous technique it is. Like you should talk, right, Likuin? Kakashi asked playfully. Sakura began to gleefully say, well, it's beyond my level. Yes, we both know how many jutsu that Kakashi has taught us, Naruto said in a derogatory tone. The only reason he can use that technique without getting himself killed is because of his Sharingan. Wait for it. What? Gaara yelled in a blood-curdling scream. Blood? My blood! And now Team will have to try to get back his arm before it is turned into pulp, Naruto said, as if he were narrating the scene down on the arena floor. Naruto chuckled and continued. Now for the weird sand arm being birthed. I'm sure he and Gaara will be happy parents. Shikamaru began to laugh at Naruto's playing around and calling the fight perfectly. And the siblings are actually worried for their younger brother, for the first time in a long time, Naruto said, while Kakashi and Guy showed surprise on their faces. With that key, Naruto sent off several clones that weren't really noticed because of what was happening down in the arena. And there was scream from the arena and Gaara again showed his face. After of course scaring most of the people in the stadium, Naruto continued his commentary. An inhuman scream came from the arena floor and the sand sphere around Gaara fell. And the Uchiha has achieved what was thought impossible. He actually hurt Gaara and made him bleed, Naruto said sadly. Naruto moved his hands to the ram seal and said, time for bed. Pretty feathers. He then whispered, release. Naruto and Shikamaru fell to the ground in a heap. Chapter 7. What happened? Around the stadium, most of the audience was falling under the genjutsu created by Kabuto. The barrier was erected to protect the Hokage and Orochimaru. 3 of the 4 ANBU stopped before hitting the barrier. The 4th almost hit it, but was intercepted by an orange blur. Naruto smiled widely at the ANBU and said, you shouldn't touch things that look dangerous, but I know that someone isn't going to listen to me. Tayuya looked at the boy who had just saved the live Alif ANBU and smiled. She suddenly felt an awkward pressure and some pleasure emanating from her left breast. She looked down to see her bow missing and the same kid fondling her breast under her shirt. What the hell? She thought, as she fought to keep her wits about her. She would never admit that she was enjoying this, but her body wanted it to continue and to stop at the same time. Like that? I can give you more. The Naruto that knelt before her said quietly as he moved his other hand beneath her shirt and fondled her other breast. She moaned in delight at the contact, but then said, can't betray Orochimaru. Osama. Don't. Stop. Naruto continued his ministrations of the North Gate Sound Shinobi. The clone with the ANBU smiled and said, he will break her soon, and then we can enter the area without having to worry about the barrier. Please stop. It feels so good. Losing concentration. Tayuya moaned out quietly. You know I can make you happy, the clone explained, as his right hand trailed down her chest to her stomach. She quivered at the touch and he quickly slipped it down the front of her pants. She looked at him with a glare only to see a kind smile returned back at her. Her eyes rolled to the back of her head when his hand touched her where no other man had been before. The barrier lost cohesion and Naruto quickly touched a pressure point on the girl, knocking her out. Dang, I hope Hinata-chan never hears about this or I might get in trouble for not doing this to her first. It might be in a good or a bad way, he exclaimed as he wrapped the girl up in some wire. The ANBU quickly jumped past the original line for the barrier and quickly subdued the other three that had created the barrier. Orochimaru looked at the blonde with disdain and anger. "You have ruined my revenge!" he exclaimed, and then produced his infamous sword and quickly cut Naruto in half. Said Naruto stuck his tongue out at the Sannin before the blade hit him and left a lasting impression when the boy turned into a cloud of smoke, showing that it was only a shadow clone. He then felt a tearing sensation in his back, as his clothes were shredded. "Dang, haven't got it quite yet," Naruto exclaimed, as Orochimaru's body slammed into the roof. Orochimaru turned to Naruto with his clothes in shambles. Naruto felt revulsion at the sight of Orochimaru showing off the face of a younger female. Naruto looked on in morbid fascination. Apparently Orochimaru didn't care that his breasts were now showing, and that his female body now showed signs of damage. "You surprise me, Naruto-kun. This is the body that I have taken over, and she was happy to do so that I could be immortal. Now you have damaged this body and taken out my men. Clever little boy, too clever. Now I must take care of you myself," Orochimaru said in a threatening tone. "You might be a good-looking girl, but you can't top this sexy jutsu," Naruto exclaimed, as his body changed into a naked, lithe, and beautiful young blonde woman. He then continued, "The sickly skin isn't a good look on you. This is a better-looking body." Orochimaru looked at the boy, now girl, and pulled his jaw off the floor. He wouldn't be outdone by a mere genin, so he grabbed the tattered remains of his outfit and tore them off his body to reveal a sickly white woman's body. "Really, Naruto-kun? This is what a woman's body should look like. Now die. Win style. Great breakthrough," he exclaimed after he did a couple of hand seals. The wind headed towards Naruto, and Orochimaru's eyes went wide when he saw the girl go through the same hand seals and exclaim, "Win style. Great breakthrough." The two jutsu slammed into each other and tore the remnants of Orochimaru's clothing from his grip. Orochimaru then felt a huge power slam into the back of his head, sending him right into the tempest. Cuts adorned his body as he traveled through the colliding jutsu and then into the clone of Naruto. Orochimaru picked himself up and ran towards the exit of the stadium, still naked and in female form. "I will get you for this, Uzumaki Naruto," he exclaimed as he disappeared from sight. Sakura looked around and saw fighting engulf the stands in the stadium. She looked up to see a sound shinobi coming straight at her with the intent to kill. She then saw a kunai pass her and impact the man just before a shadow appeared above her. She looked up to see Kakashi standing above her. She then heard the voice of Naruto saying in a taunting tone, "I got him first, but nice attempt to block, Sensei team." Kakashi scowled with his single eye and then cut his finger and said, "I've got a mission for you too, plus Shikamaru there. By the way, Naruto, how did you get out of the genjutsu?" Naruto chuckled and replied, "I knew it was coming and prepared. A clone dispersing is enough to release it. So Shika, you want to go fetch duck hair boy, before we lose the Uchiha forever in the village?" Kakashi gaped at Naruto, but then was stunned when Shikamaru responded. "Why? It would be too much trouble to save him from his destiny," he said in a sarcastic tone. Naruto chuckled at this while Sakura paled at the implications. Kakashi summoned Pakun and then said, "I need you to help these three go and collect Uchiha Sasuke, so you're in charge." Sakura began to ask, "So how are we going to get out of here without being noticed?" Her question was interrupted by both Guy and Naruto pinning a sound shinobi each against the wall. Naruto, with a completed Rasengan, much to the surprise of all present and Guy, just pushed his Guy through the wall. Naruto's jutsu also destroyed a large chunk of wall, leaving a second gaping hole. "Nicely done, Naruto-kun. Your powers of youth are most impressive," Guy said proudly. Naruto smirked, tossed two shuriken that impacted 4 sound shinobi, puncturing the first and embedding in the second each. "This way, guys. Shadow clone jutsu. You guys know what to do," he said to the dozen clones that followed. Naruto rolled his eyes when he got the memories of what he did to the sound girl. "I think I might have learned something that Hinata-chan might like," he thought to himself. "Naruto, why did you create so many clones? You more than likely will get us caught," Pakun said pointedly. "Yeah, Naruto baka," Sakura said to add her own commentary. "Shut it, Haruno. We will be followed anyways. I just want to have some fun with the hunter squad. There will be 9 of them, 8 trailing and the last one to make sure the squad doesn't get ambushed, or if they do, try and relieve that ambush, Naruto explained. As the 4 moved away from Konoha, 3 were stunned by Naruto's explanation. So you're saying that an ambush wouldn't work? Shikamaru asked. It might, but it would be tertiary to our main objective, find and bringing team back, Naruto said in an annoyed tone. He then turned to the shadows of a building and said, You can come out, Shino. I know you're there. We'll need all the help we can get. Shino appeared next to Naruto and joined the merry bunch on their way after Sasuke. You know something, don't you, Naruto-san? He asked quietly. Naruto nodded, but was seen by Shikamaru. He then said, Watch out for the guy with the dolls. He has a poisons in that toy of his, including poison gas. Thank you for that warning, Naruto-san, Shino said dispassionately. Naruto suddenly smiled and said, Too bad I'm so good with traps. Everyone looked at him in confusion. He then explained, The first 8 got caught in a simple trap, but the 9th got caught in an all-encompassing trap. I love tar and feathers. Those chickens will have to deal with Asuma-sensei now. I feel sorry for them, Shikamaru said in an almost jovial tone. Sasuke had caught up with the Sand siblings and was currently fighting Temari, who seemed rather determined to stop him. In his estimation, she had made the final slip-up and he had covered the area where she was going to land with fireballs and explosive notes. Turning to leave, he winced at the pain of his cursed seal trying to activate. He staggered for a moment, then continued on after Kankuro and Gaara. Naruto pointed down at a smoldering area and then at the branches in front of them. Wind style, great breakthrough, he yelled and sent the jutsu off to the side, destroying several trees and causing a girl to fall from the trees. He then continued, Shikamaru and Sakura, go secure her and then return her to Konoha as a prisoner of war. Sakura said angrily, Why? But was interrupted by a glare from Naruto. It stopped her immediately. She and Shikamaru complied quickly and had subdued Temari before she was able to do much of anything. Naruto, Shino, and Pakun all continued after Gaara, Kankuro, and Sasuke. Sasuke was watching the boy in front of him. You can't escape from me. I can tell which is you and which is the puppet, Sasuke exclaimed. Does it matter when you're dead? Kankuro asked happily and jumped at Sasuke. Fire style, grand fireball, Sasuke exclaimed, as a large fireball moved from in front of him and hit the Sand Shinobi dead center. Sasuke smirked, but then scowled when he had to dodge a kunai. He looked at the impact point and said, So you're using poison? It doesn't matter. I'll still beat you. Uchiha Sasuke, stand down and allow me to fight him. He was my opponent before and I believe I have first dibs on the fight with him, Shino explained. Yeah, and we can capture Gaara, Naruto said happily. Gaara slowly stood and looked directly at Sasuke and exclaimed, Uchiha, I will have your blood. Naruto looked at Shino and said, Take it elsewhere, he's going ballistic. Kankuro nodded and jumped away, not wanting to be in the path of his rampaging brother. Sasuke was breathing hard from both the exertion and from the killing intent coming off of Gaara. Sasuke looked at Naruto in awe, because he appeared to be unaffected by Gaara. So Gaara, we can do this 2 ways, the long drawn-out way, where you show your secret and I kick your butt, or we can talk like reasonable people and learn about friendship. I'm guessing since Sasuke pissed you off, we are going with the former. So beat on Sasuke for a little while, and when he can't go anymore I'll take over, and we can have a little discussion, Naruto said boastfully. You are weak, Uzumaki. I want the blood of the Uchiha, Gaara said angrily. So do most of the girls my age, but I'm not sure he goes that way, if you know what I mean, Naruto said, only to dodge a punch from Sasuke. He then asked, Hey, since when did you accept any of the offers to fornicate with your fangirls? And I thought you wanted to fight Sandboy over there. Oops, looks like he's getting mad. Sand transformation stage 1 partially complete. Gaara's right side was now covered in sand that began to take on the appearance of a tanuki. Will you entertain me, Uchiha? He asked fiendishly. Sasuke jumped towards Gaara and began a Chidori. Gaara also jumped at Sasuke and then they connected. Sasuke landed on the branch that Gaara had previously inhabited, while Naruto jumped up and away from where Gaara landed. At first it appears that the great Uchiha's attack didn't do anything. But wait for it, Naruto said with one hand on his ear and the other as if he had a microphone. Suddenly the sand arm of Gaara fell away and he screamed. Naruto continued his commentary. And he did actually hit the demon of the sand. And the crowd goes, wait a minute, we seem to have lost our crowd. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but we will get back to our fight. Shut up, Naruto, Sasuke said with a smile and drooping eyes. The arm on Gaara began to reform and the sand formed a second arm. It also fully encompassed his face and formed a tail. Re. Kick him in the knee. Ras. Kick his ass. A blonde girl in a cheerleader costume, strangely similar to Naruto's sexy jutsu girl, was cheering on the fight, but neither could tell who she was rooting for. Naruto, I swear I'm going to rape that girl of yours, Sasuke said sarcastically. I don't know whether to be honored or offended. Either he does like girls or I don't want to think about it, Naruto exclaimed. He then added, I would get out of the line of fire, Sasuke-chan. Sasuke glared for a second, but then sensed the danger and turned the Jinchuriki and saw that Gaara's hands were swinging in his direction. Sand shuriken, Gaara exclaimed, as hundreds of small globs of sand left him and headed in Sasuke's direction. He dived behind the trunk of the tree and saw the raw destructive force from the jutsu. Entire branches were torn from the trees and even a few holes were in the trunk he was hiding behind. Thanks for the heads up, Naruto, Sasuke said quietly. Naruto said quietly, from next to him, You're welcome. He then disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Looking rather pissed, the monster of the desert is looking for his prey, Naruto said from behind another tree. Uchiha, I thought you would prove my existence, but you fall very short of my expectations. Come at me with all you have and prove my existence, Gaara said boldly. Sasuke was breathing hard and couldn't feel his left arm, but then saw Naruto standing next to him, as if to ask a question, but he said nothing. What, no commentary on how I'm going to lose and you're going to win? He asked sarcastically. Naruto wagged his finger as if to say, No, not just yet. Fine. I'll deal with him and I'll tell them all how you cowered before someone so strong, Sasuke said arrogantly, but was barely able to stand. Are you asking me to take over this fight? You do know that Kakashi team told me to bring you back, right? Naruto asked playfully. And what does that have to do with what is going on now, Dobe? Sasuke asked angrily. First, if you're worn out, it will be easier to carry your idiotic ass back. Second, you have no clue what you're dealing with, Naruto explained authoritatively. Sasuke glared at Naruto, but then said, Yeah, right, you know what is going on with him. Naruto chuckled and pointed at Gaara, who seemed really pissed. Uchiha, you are weak and I will enjoy crushing your bones into meal, Gaara said angrily. He looked like his upper body was covered with sand, making it look like a tanuki, along with the wagging tail. He then turned to where the two were and smiled wide and said, I found you, my prey. Sasuke's eyes went wide when Naruto turned into a puff of smoke. Dang, I was hoping that he could help me with this, HT thought to himself, as he then jumped away from another sand shuriken jutsu. And round 3 begins. Gaara starts us off with a sand shuriken jutsu, and I must say that it is quite devastating. Wind style, great breakthrough, Naruto proclaimed, as he used his wind jutsu to block Gaara's sand shuriken. He then continued, Hey, I thought you were fighting against team, but if you want to get me involved, then fine. Naruto, don't, he will kill you. I can't beat him, so you can't, Sasuke said wearily, but the collapsed into Shino's arms. Take it easy, Uchiha-san. We shall leave it to Naruto-san, Shino said to the weary Uchiha. Both watched Naruto walk out from behind a trunk and stand out in the open with nothing for cover. Let me get this straight, you think because you have 1, you're stronger than me? I didn't do that well in math, but I believe that 9 is larger than 1, Naruto explained. Gaara's eyes went wide and Shino raised an eyebrow. What does he mean, Shino? Sasuke asked. If he wanted us to know, he would explain it further, Shino explained. Naruto sighed and a wave of sorrow filled the area. I know how you feel. The loneliness is so hard to bear. Isn't it? Naruto asked and Gaara seemed to have been hit by a punch. He then continued, they hate you for nothing that you did in the beginning, but then they try to force you to change, because they believe that you're something that you're not. Naruto laughed, but it was an empty laugh. You know, while you're strong, I'm stronger. Do you know why I'm stronger? Gaara shook his head to the question. Power began to come off of Naruto in waves. He was surrounded by his own chakra and it was visible. How can he have so much power? Sasuke asked himself, as he watched this spectacle in awe. Shino smiled warmly at the show of power of his friend. I have important people to protect, and that is what makes me strong. They are precious to me, and while I know they can protect themselves most of the time, I know that if needed I can dig deep down and draw upon a strength that will surpass those around me to protect them, even if it means that I have to sacrifice myself. You live for yourself, but do not really care if your life has meaning. You think that killing others who might be powerful, it will make you feel what you think is missing in your heart. You have love etched upon your forehead, but you don't know what it means. Live for myself and only myself. There is no meaning in that existence. It gives you nothing other than the quest to find your next victim, Naruto explained. While Naruto's blue chakra was peeling off of him, golden chakra was beginning to pour off of Gaara. I will kill you, Uzumaki, and to prove it I will capture this woman, he exclaimed when he raised his arm and shot his hand at a shadow. Naruto watched in horror as Haku was pinned to a tree. Gaara then continued, you will show me your power and one of us will survive. If you win, she will be spared. If not, both of you will die. Naruto panicked and thought, no, this is the same thing all over again. Let her go. Now, he proclaimed, while his features became more feral. You messed with the wrong fox, Tanuki, Naruto proclaimed. Gaara smiled and tilted his head as if in wonder. Show me your power. Uzumaki, he said playfully in a demonic way. Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto yelled, and the area was filled with thousands of Naruto. I'm not going to play with you this time, Gaara. Half the clones hid behind the trees while the other half jumped directly at the forming Sand Tanuki. Sand Shuriken, Gaara exclaimed, and sand-based shuriken destroyed the clones wholesale. He then smiled and asked, is that all you got, Uzumaki? Hidden Leaf, Secret Finger Jutsu, 1,000 years of death, Naruto said, as he pushed a kunai with several paper bombs at the base of Gaara's tail, and Gaara slapped Naruto away. Is that it? An enema? Pakun asked in confusion. Naruto smiled and said, boom! The bombs exploded and created a huge explosion. Naruto was caught by one of his clones, but then wiped some blood from his lip and did several hand seals. Summoning Jutsu, he proclaimed, and the area was covered in smoke. When the smoke cleared, a giant toad was standing in the forest looking down upon the damaged Tanuki. What do you want, Gaki? Gamabunta asked. Naruto pointed at Gaara and said, he's going to go demon soon and I need you as backup. Shikaku? Gamabunta asked, and Naruto nodded. What did they say? Sasuke asked. You will have to ask them, for I will not come near the great Gamabunta during a fight, Shino said, but also seemed to be irritated. Sasuke saw Shino watching the tree where Haku was pinned. I will not lose Uzumaki, Gaara exclaimed. He was totally deformed, but then the area around him became filled with sand, forming a large body, as large as Gamabunta. Can your dagger be infused with chakra? Naruto asked Gamabunta, who nodded. Naruto then jumped on to the butt of the dagger and waited for Gamabunta to draw it. While he waited, he pushed both water and wind chakra into the blade. When Gamabunta hit Shikaku's arm, unlike in his vision, it sliced cleanly through and the arm dropped to the side. Gamabunta then drew back to make another swipe, only to hear Shikaku scream, ouch! That hurt, damn it. Wind style, air bullet. Shikaku drew back his left arm and took a deep breath. He then slammed the hand into his belly. Naruto was going through hand seals quickly and yelled, jump! Wind style, great breakthrough. Naruto's jutsu, while weaker, was enough to divert the larger and more powerful wind jutsu. Faux sleep jutsu, Gaara said, and then collapsed into unconscious bliss. Naruto shook his head and said, we need get to him and wake him up. Haku-chan and the others are counting on us. I know we will need to do a dual transformation. Fire off a couple water bullets and then we can wake the bastard up. Gamabunta focused his chakra while Naruto did the necessary seals. He also fired off 2 water bullets. Shikaku had fired off a couple of his own air bullets, and when the 2 jutsu met it became a torrential downpour. Pakun, Sasuke, and Shino watched in awe at the sheer power displayed by the combatants. How did he get so powerful? Sasuke asked himself mentally. Suddenly Naruto and Gamabunta changed into something that hadn't been seen in about 13 years, the Kyuubi. The fox grabbed several trees and threw them at Shikaku, who fired a wind bullet at it and destroyed the trees, while obscuring his own vision. The fox bit down into the Tanuki's shoulder and gripped it tightly. The fox suddenly changed back into Gamabunta and Naruto jumped up to where Gaara slept. He charged a Rasengan and slammed it into Gaara's chest. This woke Gaara, but also showed that Naruto was near his limit. Shikaku, for his part, complained about not getting enough playtime. Naruto got a sense of déjà vu when both Gaara and he were on trees with Gamabunta's dagger between them. "How are you so strong, Uzumaki?" Gaara asked in halting breaths. Naruto smiled and said, "Because I needed to save some friends, and that includes you, Gaara. I had a reason to fight for, not a goal." Gamabunta and the dagger disappeared back to the summoning realm, leaving Naruto and Gaara to finish this fight. "So you feel like your butt has been kicked enough, Gaara?" Naruto asked happily. "I will not allow you to end my existence," Gaara exclaimed, but then jumped at Naruto. Naruto, being quicker, was able to hit Gaara harder than before and then scoop him up, while he landed safely on the tree. He jumped down and set Gaara down on the ground and squatted down. "You're suffering from both chakra exhaustion and chakra poisoning. The fight is over. Like I said before, I understand what it is like to be what we are. The utter loneliness is almost too much to bear, so you find an outlet for it. You became a bloodthirsty killer more out of necessity than anything else. I became a goof and hid myself behind a mask from others, but it is time for you to become more. I know your siblings care for you, but you have scared them too much to allow them to show it." Naruto then placed his hand on Gaara's shoulder and saw the fear in his eyes. "Don't hurt me anymore," he exclaimed. "Don't worry, I won't. I want to be your friend," Naruto explained, as he slowly helped Gaara to his feet. He then looked around and saw Shino carrying Haku and Sasuke walking wearily beside him. "Hey guys, thanks for rescuing her. I'm sure her husband would be rather pissed if she were hurt. Let's go home." On the way back to Konoha, they picked up Kankuro and met up with some ANBU. Naruto got Ibiki's promise that Gaara and his siblings would be treated right.